I love YouTube sometimes. It either goes live automatically or it doesn't. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to the live reading. We're going to be finishing up the second act today. But of course, we will give everyone a little bit of time to come on in, settle down, get some snacks and a drink if you haven't already. Or cozy up in your little corner, surrounded by all of your stuffies. Man, I wish I was surrounded by my stuffies. I'm so not ready for this. Well, I'm sorry, Shub, but this is how it's gonna go. I give you my characters, I give you their story, and unfortunately, sometimes I have to shake you around in a tiny jar. Well, don't worry, because we got some great moments coming up today. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a blast. Trust. And other good news, it's only going to be 60 pages. I say as I'm looking at next week, and I'm gonna read 89 pages in one stream, which is gonna be interesting, to say the very least. But it is also my fault for writing like the longest chapter I've ever written so far, which is saying a lot because I only have 2 books at this point in time. I'm drawing a lector! Yay! We love a lector. Favorite character. I've been trying to get other people to at least pick up Shadowbound so that they can read Bloodbound. And I'm making all sorts of jokes like, "Oh look, your OC is in my book. They're my favorite character." When in actuality, their OCs and my characters just share a lot of similar personality traits. It's not worked yet, but I think I'm getting there. Just a little bit more. You all should do it too. Go tell your friends that their OCs are in my book, that they're your favorite character in my book, and then they'll read my book. It works 100% of the time in my head. Therefore, you should also try it. Everyone should read Shadowbound. Push through Sultry, you'll convince them. I agree. If you haven't read Shadowbound, then maybe you should. The audiobook is free. Link in the description down below. Also, go buy my book on Amazon. Link also in the description down below. Be great if you could support the channel that way. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. It's time to read! Oh boy. I'm excited. Alright. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. Chapter 10. That's right. The door opens once again, causing Jake to turn away from his bowl of warm soup. He's wrapped in thick blankets, huddled by the hearth of Olga's home, though he casts everything aside once Ethan steps in with a distressed Kimberly by his side. "Kim!" he cries, rising to his feet and dashing over to the two. Despite the chill that continues to permeate his bones and the frosty mist his girlfriend radiates, he promptly wraps his arms around her in a tight hug. Kimberly buries her face into his shoulder, her face wet with tears. Stars above, what happened down there? He can't help but wonder. He was already upset that he was unable to descend into Frostfall with them, but seeing her in this state... Why did he have to succumb to the cold? If only he were there with her. "You're back," Olga says as she lumbers over. Her beady eyes glance briefly at Kimberly before asking the husk, "How is she?" "Unharmed," Ethan replies, his voice stiff. "She'll be surfacing soon." His dark eyes scan the great room. "Where's Opal?" The question makes Jake's blood run cold. Though Ethan's face gives nothing away, malice radiates from his figure. Out of the corner of his eye, Jake can see Olga's fur bristle beneath the weight of the husk's stare. "She left just now," the Aphir responds. The husk is quiet. The light of the hearth dims, and the dark corners of the room tremble. Eventually, he turns back to the door. "I'll meet you two at the gate." His cape swishes as he makes his exit. A blast of cold Gardal air washes over Jake as the door slams shut, making him shiver. Jake finally leans away from Kimberly, though he leaves his hands on her shoulders to keep her steady. What happened? She stares at the floor, her lips quivering. She takes in a breath as if she were to start speaking, only to exhale and deflate even more. Jake continues to hold her, waiting patiently for her to find her words. "We lost the shard," she mutters. "His shadow took it." No wonder the two of them came back so defeated. The loss of a shard is troubling indeed. Electro's shadow was difficult to fight before, but now? He doesn't know how they're ever going to be able to fight back. But that doesn't seem to be the worst of it. Frustration over failure is one thing, but Kimberly cried. That's not normal. "What about your mom?" he asks her. Her breath quivers as she inhales, shaking her head. "Not now," she whispers. Jake can only stare back at her helplessly. It pains him to see her so upset like this, but he's at a loss for words for what he should do. Embers sputter within him, unable to answer his question. "What kind of fool do you take me for?" The question echoes across the mountaintop, making the house shake beneath its sheer rage. Jake's stomach drops with dread as Kimberly is shaken from her sullen stupor. The two lift their heads to the ceiling above. 5 centuries later, and you expect me to come crawling back to you?" Ethan's roar continues. "After everything I've been through, why should I?" In a panic, the two wizards rush outside, stepping out into the bitter cold air. Jake bites down on his tongue as the chill hits him. He tightens his hold on Kimberly for his own sake, just in case he collapses. From where they stand, they can see that the front gate to the Aphir town has been thrown open with so much force that the ground beneath it has been wiped clean of snow, revealing flat gray rock below it. Ethan floats in the air just beyond the opening, his black silhouette somehow feeling larger than life. Anger permeates the air, seeping into Jake's heart and making it blaze with inexplicable fury. Did you really expect me to forgive and forget everything that you've done? You haven't changed at all. You are the last being deserving of even a small fraction of a shard. There's no sign of Opal anywhere as the husk yells at the sky. Can the whole island hear him? Could he have always been this loud before? There's a pause to the shouting, the hot air fading as quickly as it had been created. But ease and relief don't fill the void in Jake's heart, only a hopeless hollowness, along with a kind of sorrow that can only be birthed in the absence of emotion. Is this a change in Ethan's emotions, or how Jake actually feels? We should probably get going, Kimberly says in a low, exhausted voice. She turns to Olka, who has been stood staring along with them in the doorway to her home, and tells her, "Thank you." The Yafir nods back slowly. "Safe travels." Kimberly takes Jake's hand, pulling him along as they walk down the quiet street. The mountain has become strangely still. The silence of the town is almost eerie. Even the chill of the air has lost its biting edge. It's not just the beings affected by the overwhelming emotion. The mountain itself is absorbing it too. He squeezes her hand. She squeezes back. A small ember jumps for joy within him, bursting into a tiny flame and a thin smile. As they approach the gate, he can see clearer now that the scene that had just unfolded. Opal is pressed deep into the snow, her eyes wide and fearful as she's held in place by Ethan's stare. She hardly even breathes, thin puffs of air the only thing that indicates life. Nearby are the rucksacks and some of the spare clothes she had lent them, stacked in one big, messy heap. "Ethan," Kimberly calls. The husk twists around in the air to face them. His dark eyes hold no lively spark as he regards them. Beneath his gaze, Jake feels something inside him shift and stiffen, braced for the worst and hoping for the best. "Are you two ready?" he asks, his lips barely parting. Together, the couple nods back. Kimberly then lets Jake's hand go and steps towards the enchanter. She takes off her blown snowcoat and tosses it towards her. "Thanks," she says simply. A blast of annoyance radiates from Ethan, but his face remains stiff and unreadable. "They're back," Shadow announces in a dull voice. "Is Kelsey with them?" Electro asks. "No." The electromancer lets out a sigh as he slumps back into the sofa. His body aches from his exercising. It's a dull throb that's calmed only by Shadow's cold presence, holding his wiry frame together through his exhaustion. He was hoping against all hope that she'd come back with them. Now he can't help but wonder if he'll ever get to see her again. Even though he knows where she lives now, would that kind of trip be worth it? He had been told to stay away for a reason. "Was Ryan there with her?" he inquires. "No," Shadow cautiously replies, though it casts doubt onto his mind as it starts to squirm within him, suddenly unable to settle itself. It's been suspiciously quiet since he went for his run. "What happened?" he demands. Shadow takes its time answering. When it finally does, it mutters quietly, "Just wait." Its agitation grows stronger. He closes his eyes, settling into the silence. He's having a hard time recalling her face, a swirl of colors and abstract shapes trying to fit themselves into her image. But her voice, her laugh, her smile, all of that is gone. He can't help but feel bad for letting her fade away from his memory. His heart aches, begging for her presence. Yet this oppressive haze continues to linger, no matter how much effort he puts into his thoughts, both in and out of his coma. He has been helpless all these years, only able to watch her slip away. It makes him angry at Ryan. He must have done this to Electro too. The little bell below chimes, and he opens his eyes to the blaring lights of the room. He hears 2 sets of footsteps climb the stairs, the newcomers not speaking a word. Jake steps into the room first, casting Electro an annoyed glance, one hand on his hip. Ethan flies in behind him, though he lingers near the doorway with his head bowed. Electro leans against the sofa, bracing for the worst, as he asks, "It got her, Shard, didn't it?" Ethan's face darkens as he lowers his head, hiding his eyes beneath its wide brim. He clenches his hands into tight fists, partly visible beneath his heavy-hanging cape. "Yes." "So what now?" Jake asks. "We wait," Ethan answers plainly. His head turns to Electro. "We need to talk." With a small grumble, Electro rises to his feet and drifts after the husk as he leads the way into the shop below. The two stand alone with the large mixers and coolers. Despite him wanting to talk, Ethan keeps his back to the wizard as he asks, "Were you and Kelsey married?" Electro's hand strays immediately to where his wedding ring once should be on his finger. He brushes against his own cold skin, almost fooling himself into believing that it's still there. It pains him to even think of his answer. "Once," he confirms. Ethan's arm shifts as he falls into an uneasy silence. Shadow's presence shrinks within, condensing itself as much as it can. It doesn't take long for Electro to grit his teeth angrily. There's more going on here than what these two aren't telling him. Not yet. "What does our marriage have to do with anything?" he asks harshly. "Everything," Ethan replies. He finally turns to face the wizard, his dark eyes aglow with realization. His shoulders sag as an invisible weight presses down on him. He takes a deep breath in an attempt to collect himself. "Don't tell me Ryan was there," Electro says, his tone dark and threatening. "No, he wasn't," Ethan assures him. A rush of relief expels itself through his mouth as a constriction in his heart that he wasn't even aware of eases in an instant. Thank the stars! At the very least, she's safe from him. "I recall," Ethan says slowly, drawing his attention once more, "you mentioning you had a daughter once." Sparks start to dance across Electro's clothes, dread seizing at his chest where his tense anticipation once occupied. He's not bringing that up out of nowhere. "Don't tell me she's not with her," he breathes. "I had only presented it as a possibility, not a definitive," Ethan corrects. "Where else would she be?" Electro asks, trying to keep himself from yelling. All this time, holding on to hope that Ethan gave him, that Kelsey would be watching over their child. But if Kelsey doesn't have their daughter, then what? "She's been here, on Asandra, this entire time," Ethan answers calmly. He makes a sweeping gesture to the room around them. "You've already met her. Kimberly Starshield." The world feels to fall away from underneath him as he stares back at the husk. Everything is numb, his mind blank except for her name. Kimberly Starshield. Starshield. Star. His hands turn to fists that tremble. He can feel his veins bulge as the hue of hot anger creeps across his vision. His magic flares, lightning dancing around the room unfettered, sparking off metal and searing the tile floor. Shadow's presence is consumed by the storm, leaving behind an all-consuming hatred. Star Song! It's all so clear now. He almost wants to laugh. Electro? Ethan asks, his voice tight with caution. At once, the electrical storm ceases, though Electro remains tense. Where is he? He asks, his glare razor-sharp. Where's Jay? Jay? The husk echoes. He's lost in confusion, though it doesn't take him long to reply. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Electro shakes his head. He doesn't want her to see him in this state. But it shouldn't matter. He's only asking to see if his suspicions are correct. It's been 18 years after all. Plenty of time for Jay to have packed up and move. If he were smart. Forget it, he growls, finally turning away. I'll be back. Chapter 11. Every single fiber of Blaze's body is on fire, in a constant state of being ripped to shreds by millions of tiny needles. It's hard to describe what it's like forcing a single vine up through the sand. The sensation of pushing away the grains both weighs him down and uplifts him at once, making standing on the moving mass of plant matter feel very strange. The breeze is hot and sticky against his face. He can't wait to be gone from Mirage. Amber and Luri, however his name is pronounced, sits on the mass of vines behind him, chatting about something he can't quite hear. Through the pain and the heat and concentration on his magic, he can barely make out the sound of his own breathing right now. He was able to recover from some of the damage done to him already, but not completely. He hates to admit it, but he's extremely out of practice, even with all his education. Sandra is hardly a place where he can rip up the ground with minimal complaints of property damage. He is more used to causing tremors with his vines, feeling the cool dirt shift and slide against his skin. Dirt is a far cry from sand. It has certainly been nice to feel the light of the cycle shine down on him. He hadn't been expecting the air of the desert to be so clear. It's not as crisp as a Sandra, though it doesn't carry that claustrophobic mustiness that always hangs around the tightly packed buildings. Or maybe it's just him. Open green spaces are extremely hard to come by on ASTRIA. Since he's out and about, maybe when he's not needed anymore, he can spend some time sitting under the willow tree. He's hardly been there as of late, and he feels bad about that. It's always so peaceful there, a place where he can truly relax. The last time he went, he had to deal with a distraught Amber. Well, actually, he didn't have to. It just felt right to do for her what Ethan once did for him. Maybe this time he'll have no hassle to sour his already dreary mood. The dunes that hide the archway appear in the distance, their peaks rising high above the orange ocean around them. As much as Mirage enchants him, relief still floods his being. Solari is their next stop, if he remembers correctly. It'll still be somewhat sandy, but at least he'll not need to transport them very far. As he brings the three of them to a rolling stop, his senses start to return. He still feels hot and sweaty, and that's because he is. The rumble of the vines in his ears dies out, and finally he can make out the end of the conversation between his two companions. Why? Luke asks, sounding mildly upset. They're just trying to preserve it the best they can, Amber replies simply. Blaze casts a glance over his shoulder. The Cerberus is frowning, even as an adventurous gleam glows in his emerald eyes. But it's ours, he states, emphasizing each word he speaks. They have no right. Have you seen how far the archway is? Amber cuts in, gesturing the way they just came. Blaze's vines have carved out a large ditch, a scar that cuts through the dunes without care. The Cerberus' town is nowhere to be seen, having left their sight ages ago. Besides, how would you stop them if they just did it anyway? Luke folds his arms and scowls down at the sand, thinking, though it's not for very long. He shakes his head, lost for words, yet still upset. It's not that bad, really, she promises him, though she looks to Blaze for confirmation. Oh, what's not bad? He asks. The pyramid? Luke also turns his head, waiting for Blaze to answer the question. No wonder he sounded upset. With the pyramid belonging to the ancient Cerberus, hearing that some foreign beings have simply wandered inside with sticks and paint to fix up the Cerberus' art must not have been the most pleasant thing for the prince to hear. Amber hasn't even gone on her class trip yet. She wouldn't even see the remnants of Solari officially until her third term at the earliest as of right now. Maybe even her second if the rules end up changing. Blaze folds his arms and turns to the tall dunes behind him. You'll see when we get there. The three shimmy their way up and over the dunes that hide the archway, sand filling his shoes and rubbing against his skin irritably. As Amber searches for her keystone, Ethan must have given one to her, for how else would a first term be able to access the restricted island? Blaze sits down to clean out his shoes. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees Luke points a finger at him. Blase? Blaze, he mutters back, like a fire. The Cerberus blinks. His eyes flicker up and down, staring at his bright green outfit. But you're a healer? Like Amber. He stares down at the sand beneath him in silence. Not this again, he almost huffs aloud. Yeah, I'm a healer. He glances up at the back of Amber's head as he adds, but I'm nothing like her. She finally raises a hand, presenting the archway with a new keystone. The tilted structure glows and rumbles as the rip opens, revealing the excavation camp and the base of the Great Pyramid. She turns to the two boys behind her and asks, Ready? With a small grunt, Blaze refits his second shoe and stands up, trudging over to her, Luke trotting along after him. His class took a field trip to the pyramid towards the beginning of the school year, back when they were still setting up the lights inside. The pyramid was dark and drafty, full of dust and ancient rooms, shrouded in enchantments and shadows. He didn't get to see much of the place due to how unsafe it was back then. He'd be lying if he said he weren't at least a little excited to get a second, albeit unofficial, tour. Blaze leads the way through the rip. As he steps from the soft orange dunes to hard-packed and sandstone, he braces for a change in atmosphere, but the change never comes. Each island's environment is completely different, all except for Mirage and Solari. Moving through the archway, going from the vast desert to a fragment of land still bathed in the Mirage sun, makes the hairs on his arms bristle uncomfortably. Whoa, Amber breathes, staring up at the Great Pyramid in utter awe. Sparkles shine in her silver eyes. Blaze lets a small grin slip briefly. There's just something about seeing her like this that makes him feel content. He shakes his head sharply to release the emotion's hold over him. Now isn't the time to be enjoying the sights. They have more important things to worry about right now. All right, we're here, he says to Amber, snapping her from her spell. What now? Oh, she mutters. Ethan said to ask for Sir Taylor, but, She takes one look at the tents before them and tenses up. All of her earlier confidence and gusto is gone, just like that. Then again, she wasn't really as confident as she was sassy. He still had to step in and save her from those Cerberus. For whatever reason, she's trying to put on a facade and is failing at holding it. Blaze rolls his eyes, the first of the three to take a step forward. Fine then, I'll ask. He takes the lead, striding over the packed sand and heading towards the collection of colorful tents, his two quiet companions in tow. A wizard rushes from one of the tents, his arms full of papers. His eyes dart this way and that, making sure he doesn't run into any other being, but he falters when he sees Blaze and his two quiet companions approaching the makeshift camp. Students? The wizard speaks in disbelief. You three shouldn't be. We're here to see Sir Taylor, Blaze interrupts. Where is he? The wizard's eyes immediately light up with recognition. Oh, you're the ones that the fragment said were coming. He's inside the pyramid right now, supervising the cleanup crew. Wait right here. I'll drop these off and I can take you inside. The wizard rushes off, disappearing into a tent directly on their left. Blaze takes this opportunity to turn to Amber and say, See, all you need to do is ask. But he finds only anxiety in her gaze as she shrinks further into herself, her eyes darting to her feet. She looks like she wants to make a retort, but lacks the will to even speak. What is wrong with her? He can't help but wonder. What is this? Luke asks, drawing Blaze's attention. He's standing next to the tent on the right, tugging at its fabric gently and rubbing it between his fingers to feel its texture. It's a tent, Blaze replies. Tenta. The Cerberus slowly repeats, looking the structure up and down. Then he looks to Blaze and inquires, What does it do? At first, Blaze can only frown. What do you mean? It's a tent. He almost speaks, but he holds his tongue. He doesn't want to upset the royal with something so brash. Besides, Luke looks genuinely lost. Saying such a thing would only make him seem like a jerk. It takes a moment for him to realize that the Cerberus has probably never seen a tent before. It's a temporary house, he answers. You can take it down, move it around, and put it back up again wherever you need it to be. Wow. The Cerberus turns back to the tent, continuing to fiddle with the small piece of fabric in his hand. Funny how he's more amazed by something as simple as a tent, while Amber could only gawk at the sandstone structure many times her own size. The wizard from earlier emerges from his tent at last, wiping his sweat-ridden brow and smiles at the two students and Cerberus. He appears to be in better spirits now that he has been able to free himself from his previous duty. This way, try not to fall behind. Lucre, come on, Amber says softly to the Cerberus, taking his free hand and gently pulling him away from the tent. Luke frowns back at her silently with mild disappointment. The air inside the pyramid is musty and still warm, a displeasing combination for Blaze to breathe. He raises a hand to his mouth and stifles some coughs as they leave the mirage sun behind them. The massive main hall is in complete disarray. Most of the beings work carefully with sandstone, attempting to clean off small black marks clearly not part of any of the paintings or stonework. Wizards shepherd around large buckets of water and various brushes and rags as the Shasks do what they can to save the ancient walls. Lucre stares at the walls with his mouth agape as they are led down the hallway of chaos. He radiates both awe and horror at the state of the pyramid, his people's pride and joy. Amber keeps a firm hold on the Cerberus's arm to keep him close by. She can't help but glance at the walls herself, but she seems more distracted with the prince and making sure he doesn't cause any problems. Eventually, the wizard the three were following stops and gestures to a grand doorway splitting off from the main hall. There's a short pathway that leads to a grand chamber beyond that's been left in shambles. Any flat surface is carved with deep runes of various sizes and shapes. The sandstone is heavily scorched, too. The ground is covered with chunks of rubble, large and small, all organized into different piles arranged by size. Some of the workers simply stand around scratching their heads, most likely wondering where they're going to put all this mess and how they're going to transport it all there, wherever there winds up being. In the middle of the mess stands a Shask, dressed in a fancy yet stiff-looking red outfit. Their wizard guide points to this Shask. "That's Sir Taylor right there," he says. "Thanks," Blaze mutters automatically as the wizard briskly takes his leave, returning to whatever work he was doing before. Blaze turns to his two companions and asks, "Either of you want to go introduce us?" Amber doesn't exactly shake her head, but it certainly twitches from left to right, anxiety returning to her gaze. Why is she here again? Because Ethan asked her to be? Luke appears more willing to go speak to the Shask, but he, too, is struck by fear of his own. He points to the Shask's legs and attempts to put his thoughts into words. What? Why? Blaze just lets out a huff and shakes his head disappointingly. What is he supposed to be? The muscle or the negotiator? Doesn't matter. Looks like it's all up to him again. He takes off into the chamber, his head held high and chest puffed out with purpose. As he nears the Shask, he clears his throat to grab his attention. Sir Taylor turns his head, a single mechanical blue dot for an eye, widening with a series of clicks. A chill ripples through Blaze's body as he stares back at the Shask. He tries not to mind their augments, but that doesn't mean he agrees with what they decide to do to themselves. It's unnatural. "My, a student," he says with surprise. "Ethan sent me," Blaze speaks before the Shask has time to shoo him away. He jabs a thumb over his shoulder to Amber and Luke behind him. "They're with me too. We need some help." The Shask fully turns to Blaze and nods. "Ah, yes, the fragment told me to expect you," he chuckles. He extends a mechanical hand towards Blaze, his joints clicking as they adjust themselves. "Sir Dalton Taylor." Not wanting to be rude, he shakes the Shask's hand. Blaze. Sir Taylor moves to Amber and Lucre, offering each of them a welcoming smile and a handshake. Amber shyly reciprocates as she brings herself to meet the Shask's mismatched eyes. "Amber," she mutters. Luke completely disregards the Shask's hand, fully entranced by his mechanical legs. Amber gives him a nudge on the arm and whispers, "Hey, he wants to shake your hand." Oh, he stammers, finally looking up. He rolls his shoulders back as he, too, gives the Shask a firm handshake. "Lucre, Prince of Mirage." "The Prince of Mirage?" Sir Taylor asks back with a polite laugh. Though the Shask might not believe him right away, Luke nods back with a smile. The Cerberus knocks his heels together, and in an instant his legs fuse into that of a long emerald tail that curls around him to form a supportive base to keep him held up high, as high as he can. Even so, he's gone from slightly standing over Amber down to just below her chin. A series of loud clicks come from the Shask as he radiates an air of surprise and disbelief. Blaze quietly slips his hands into his pockets, staring at Luke's tail as well. Granted, he was just on Mirage, faced with both tailed and legged Cerberus alike, but it hadn't crossed his mind that they could switch between the two. He just assumed that they were more like the Fenny, where some are born with bushy tails and some are not. "Well," Sir Taylor says, "it's quite the honor to have an esteemed Cerberus such as yourself visit the pyramid." Luke blinks, processing the Shask's compliment. "Thank you." His tail fades away as quickly as it had appeared, and Luke once again stands on his own 2 feet. He clears his throat, wanting to get down to business. I need to access the center of the pyramid. Where is it? It would be this way, Sir Taylor says, gesturing with his hand the direction in which he wants the three of them to follow him as he starts off. They make their way back to the main hallway and turn left, heading further away from the pyramid's entrance. It's a lot calmer this direction, with the damage being age and not burns. The Shasks take great care with the pictures, redefining their forms, revitalizing their colors. Passing these beings by, Luke appears to be much less tense than he was before, quietly studying the pictures for himself. It doesn't take them too long to get to the hallway's distant end. It narrows into a small doorway, which promptly widens once more into that of a sunken chamber. It's shaped into a semicircle with tiered platforms curving around a small dais at the very bottom. Behind the dais appears to be an entrance to a tunnel, leading off into the darkness. The room is lit only by a few bulbs running along the wall near the hallway opening. Did this place used to be a theater or gathering center? Blaze can only guess. This is the center? Luke asks. Sir Taylor shakes his head. No, it's through that tunnel there, but, well... Oh, how do I explain this? The Shask scans the chamber briefly, searching for his words. Not just any being can waltz right in. What does that mean? Blaze says. We had an incident not too long ago, Sir Taylor explains. A small group of workers tried to explore the tunnel below, but the moment one of them reached that dais, they went mad and attacked any being who got close to them and the tunnel. Mad, the Shask says. What a clever way to keep unwanted beings out, by turning them against one another. Do you know why? Blaze continues to interrogate Sir Taylor. No, sadly, the Shask replies. None of the enchanters want to approach the dais, but we suspect that it's a type of security measure left in place by the ancient Cerberus. Do you know what's down that tunnel? No, Blaze answers. The Shask smiles eagerly, the ear of the uninitiated lent to the expert. It's the Grand Prophecy, boy. It is a room that is said to be able to tap into the power of the fabric of fate to answer any question. Though with power like that, only the Mirage Royals were allowed to use its power to its fullest extent. Blaze lets out a thoughtful hum. Such a room wouldn't be without heavy protection, then. Even if the expedition was able to get past the strange spell of madness, no doubt there would be even more obstacles for them to overcome within that dark tunnel. Guardian Spirit. Luke finally speaks up. He points down to the dais below them. A thief, cursed to protect the heart of the pyramid. It will guide the royals of Mirage. That's what I learned, anyway. One person steps on the dais, and the spirit will take the royal to the center. He immediately looks at Amber. Me? She stammers back. You want me to... I'll do it, Blaze interrupts, stepping forward. But he's already making his way down the center steps, his mind made up. He doesn't want Amber to get hurt because of this supposed guardian spirit. Sure, Ethan will have his head if that happens. But offering himself to go first just feels like the right thing to do. His left shoulder feels stiff, but in a good kind of way. He makes it to the bottom of the chamber, and is now standing face to face with the tunnel's mouth. He was expecting it to be longer than it actually is. Bathed in darkness, he can barely make out its other end. It looks solid enough. A door, perhaps? With carvings flashing in and out of the black murk. But in order to really know what it is, he'd have to go down there and touch it. He takes a deep breath and steps onto the dais, bracing himself for what's to come. He's still just a student after all. There's only so much he can do. But he's also the best being to be the test subject. The prince is too important, and Amber is too fragile. Standing there all alone, nothing happens. He feels completely fine. With a small frown of disappointment, he continues to move towards the tunnel. But as he plants his first foot forward, he freezes. A sharp chill rushes over him as a surge of magic bursts from the core of his very being. The magic doesn't belong to him. It's foreign. Its icy touch spreading across his limbs like a malicious infection. It wraps itself around his bones and heart, collecting his power and draining it into his chest. Numbness is slowly starting to set in, and with it comes fear and panic. It's not the same as when Shadow first appeared to him, how it held him in place with force, but the loss of control over himself is as real as it had been then. Only instead of his essence being held down to be ripped out of him, something else has invaded his being and aims to manipulate his essence from within, and he is powerless to stop it from happening. For better or for worse, he, at least, still has his mind. He can see and experience, but not act. That control is now in the grasp of whatever darkness has planted itself inside him. But even the luxury of clear thought becomes tainted by ghostly whispers and the urge that seeks to override his remaining senses. The entity makes their goal extremely clear to him. Protect this sanctum from all outsiders. His fingers twitch. His magic begins to be pushed around by this foreign force, molding it in ways it does not wish to be shaped, stretching and compressing to its limits. It's methodical. This is not the first time this entity has possessed a living being, nor will it likely be its last. It knows magic. It knows how to use it. But every time it tries to exert its control, every slight movement made from Blaze's body, there is an unruly lurch of staunch protest in response. Pinpricks of pain start to dance across his skin, starting from his left shoulder and radiating outwards. Warmth is slowly returning to his body, but it's not the kind that restores his dormant senses. No, a new power has been awakened, a dense force of energy residing just beneath his skin. The warmth is anger. His magic lashes back out, swirling against its constraints as the spirit tries to regain control. Beneath the sandstone, he can feel the coarseness of sand rubbing against his vines as they sprout up from the depth of the island and rush their way upwards to its surface. The ground begins to rumble and shake, a gentle hum that grows ever louder. With the physical pain added to the spiritual war, his body falls to its knees. Oddly enough, that is painless, the impact but a very distant pressure he hardly feels at all. His left shoulder feels like it's on fire, a small star burning its way through his skin as he tries desperately to hold himself together. The tremors grow more intense the harder he resists. "Blaze!" he hears Amber cry out in alarm. She starts down the stairs. He senses her approach somehow, a body of energy moving through mist. The closer she gets, the stronger his shoulder burns, and the urge for violence grows. "Stop!" he manages to shout back, his voice sounding like it has been magnified tenfold. It fills the room so sharply that Amber stops dead in her tracks. He can hardly see straight through the conflicting energies within him. The most he can bring himself to do is remain knelt in place, suppressing his vines as much as he can. He won't let them tear through the ancient structure. He doesn't want to be the cause of a disaster. He doesn't want these beings to hate him even more than they already do. I cannot harm her. But she is a threat. Those are my orders, and I have mine. He doesn't recognize either of these voices, even if the first one sounds like him. Neither feels as if they belong, completely untethered from his thoughts and feelings. One comes from that living being under his skin, his shadow, and the other from the spirit that now haunts him. He is not the one fighting for control. His shadow feels so detached, yet so anchored, and the mysterious spirit so foreign, yet so commanding, and his mind floats in the ether, trapped helplessly between these two forces. He doesn't know what to do. There are beings here I must protect, his shadow says, and I must protect this place. So, we are at an impasse, the spirit huffs. Tell me, is there a royal of Mirage among you? Yes, the prince. The spirit hums skeptically, making his head buzz. I saw no prince. Believe me or not, he is here, his shadow insists. Then I must conduct my test. So long as none pose a threat, I will not force you to do harm. His shadow doesn't reply, its presence instead quietly receding to the background, granting the spirit free rein over his body. But it still stirs unhappily as his shoulder throbs, alert and prepared to step in once more if the spirit decides to cross his body's boundaries. His body stands, the spirit in complete control. He turns to face the three beings at the top of the chamber. Amber's posted midway on the stairs. Luke and Sir Taylor haven't moved, though their bodies are tense with anticipation regardless. Only members of the royal family of Mirage are permitted to enter this sacred place. He speaks. Though the words are spoken in his voice, he is not the one behind them. His eyes dance from the pink-haired girl to the living metal monster, and finally to the plainly clothed beings standing awkwardly off to the side, giving each of them a special sneer of disgust. I was told that one of you was a prince. I am, Luke speaks up, stepping forward. Despite his tenseness, he holds his head high, authority radiating from his lean figure. I am Lucre, the current crown prince of Mirage. But Blaze's body frowns back skeptically. Where is your sash, your circlet? The Cerberus's eyes widen with surprise and alarm, his hands straying to his chest in an instant. It's, he mutters, at home. I was racing. Blood does not make a Mirage royal, he interrupts harshly. If you have no proof of your princehood, then leave. So this entire trip was for nothing? All this way just to find out that Luke left all the things they have needed behind? But, Luke starts, only for the spirit to swiftly shut him down. I am a guard. I am not here for conversation. I did not write the rules of this place. I only enforce them. Do you wish to try my patience further? This boy says that there are beings here he cannot harm, but that will not stop me from fulfilling my duties. Blaze wants to roll his eyes. He wasn't the one who said that. It was his shadow that did, and he doesn't know why, nor does he really care. The sooner the spirit releases him from its hold, the happier he'll be. You said yourself that blood doesn't make a royal, Luke states. Neither do the symbols. Any Cerberus can present a circlet or a sash and lay claim to the title of royal. What makes a royal is leadership and wisdom and the people's approval. The spirit is quiet, absorbing his words. Eventually, Blaze's face contorts into a snarky grin. A test, then. His arms rise, and his magic shifts within him as the room flares with green light. It's harsh as it is brilliant, born from the spirit's own power. Pictures flash up on the walls with ghostly green flames, images of Cerberus adorning regal attire in either silver or gold circlets. Prove yourself to the court of your ancestors, and I will acknowledge your status as a royal, the spirit announces. Show them that you are worthy of leading their descendants. Inspire them with your wisdom. If more than half of these lights fizzle out, all of you will leave. Luke stares back from the top of the room, startled by the blast of magic, but determined all the same. He nods, accepting the spirit's challenge. Almost immediately, pictures start to disappear, their flames winking away into darkness unceremoniously. Mouths drop open in surprise. And Blaze's jaw would have probably dropped too, if he could. Luke hasn't even said or done anything, and they're already leaving? Is this even fair? You judge already? The Cerberus yells out in frustration. The pictures don't respond, only that they continue to disappear, one by one. He bares his fangs, but doesn't make any further comments, despite his displeasure being quite apparent. Instead, he takes some time to think, closing his eyes and lowering his head to concentrate. Still, the spirit quietly molds and shifts Blaze's magic within. Hot and cold spots dance across his numb skin. Soft and tingly, yet present all the same. Its fingers poke around at random, and whatever its fingers touch, another flame flickers out. Are Luke's ancestors truly in the room with them right now? Or is this spirit pulling some elaborate trick? He can't say, figuratively and literally. Finally, Luke takes a deep breath and opens his eyes. He rights his posture as he opens his mouth, prepared to speak. I am not here to prove or disprove who I am, he says, slowly and methodically, making sure each word is heard. I know that I am the Crown Prince of Mirage, as does every person I know. The Cerberus accept it, and the wizards acknowledge it. I beseech you, ancestors, to grant me access to the pyramid's heart for ASTRIA's sake. Some of the pictures flicker, dimming but not quite disappearing. I know the shard has been taken, Luke continues, and that it was a wizard who tricked my mother to obtain it. But, as you see, there are other wizards trying to find this thief too. They want to protect Astria, including Mirage. Why would we be different from them? We should not forget what they've done to us, but they should not be quick to forego the safety of the world because of them. I have heard the stories of this chamber, and I know what I will be getting myself into. I will never be ready to bear the burden of knowledge, but I am the only one able to do so. This is a sacrifice I am willing to make to prevent disaster. The silence is eerie as the flames flicker and wave in mysterious patterns, but no more pictures snuff themselves out. Blaze's head tilts. Is the spirit listening for something? Is it considering the Cerberus's words? It is decided, he speaks at last. With the wave of his hand, the pictures disappear all at once, and the soft glow of the light bulbs returns. Then he gestures to Luke grandly. Approach, my prince. Slowly, the prince makes his way down to the center staircase, stopping briefly by Amber's side as he passes her. The two have a quiet exchange, Amber shrugging as Luke stares at her with a lost look. She mutters something and gives him a reassuring pat on his shoulder, and a smile as he finally nods back. As the Cerberus steps up to the dais, one of Blaze's hands rises, fingers spread, and from his palm ignites a small green flame that hardly flickers as his arm moves around, gesturing for the Cerberus to follow him. The green tinge must be from the spirit using his magic as its primary source of power. He's never studied fire magic before. Together, the two make their way into the dark tunnel. The walls and curved ceiling are just as engraved as the rest of the pyramid, though this time the images are much more regal and symbolic than a simple prophecy. The way they each curve and flow into one another makes it hard for him to find where one symbol ends and another begins. The green light from the ghostly flame doesn't make anything feel real either. Where shadows should reside in the deep grooves of the carvings, there are none to be seen, making the tunnel feel rather flat. Not even the dark figures of their bodies are cast along the sandstone. I apologize for my harshness, the spirit says, its low voice still echoing up and down the enclosed space. I was simply following the rules. It's okay, Luke replies quietly. He is much more interested in the symbols than he is with talking to Blaze's possessed body. And forgive me, the spirit adds, for not stopping that thief when I could. If I had known his intentions, I would never have released him from my grasp. Shame and anger boils inside Blaze's gut at the spirit's request. As such, I cannot vouch for the accuracy of the grand prophecy any more with the pyramid's heart gone. Luke finally turns to Blaze's body, his eyes sparkling with determination. It's still worth trying. It doesn't take them much longer to reach the end of the tunnel. If Blaze weren't inhabited by this spirit, he'd think that this would have simply been a trek to nowhere. But with this spirit, he can see what he would have otherwise overlooked. It's a circular door that protects the pyramid's center from outside forces. Its surface glows with the same green energy as the fire in his hand, special runes that only the guardian spirit can see. He raises his free hand and waves it over the door, his fingers brushing against the runes as he does so. Which each one the spirit selects, it flashes a brilliant white before dulling to a dark jade color. I cannot accompany you inside, my prince, the spirit says. But once you step through this door, place your hand on a wall and ask it what you wish to know. But I warn you, search only for what you need to know. Knowledge brings wisdom, but in return it takes ignorance. And that ignorance, most often, is better to keep. With the runes dealt with, the tunnel begins to rumble as the door slowly starts to roll. The spirit turns back just in time to catch Luke nodding along, though whether or not he understood the spirit's warning is hard to tell. Slowly, he enters through the circular doorway, disappearing into the chamber beyond. The spirit turns its gaze back down the hall, waiting patiently for the prince's return. You were a thief too, Blaze's shadow asks, wanting to spark some conversation. The spirit frowns. Formerly, yes. You were after the shard, weren't you? What else would there be worth stealing here? The spirit huffs. Blaze's eyes close as the spirit reminisces. I was also a pyromancer, and a shard seeker. While the specific term is new to Blaze, he naturally assumes that the spirit was simply another shard hunter of their time. So must have been bound here to set an example for future hunters, then. I should have known better. The spirit continues on, its frustration growing within him. But I allowed myself to be convinced otherwise. How could I have forgotten the oldest tricks so easily? His eyes open again, just in time for Luke to stagger back out into the dim hall. His shadowless face is flat, his gaze far away. He gives Blaze's body the briefest glance, then wordlessly starts off back the way the two had come. The spirit once more sighs, rattling Blaze's body as it quietly trails the prince. I warned him. They make its They make it back to the main chamber. Amber sits where she stopped on the stairs, staring at the tunnel blankly. Once Luke emerges, she springs to her feet, her face regaining some of its liveliness. Sir Taylor remains near the chamber's entrance, observing the scene from his perch. "Lucre!" the healer exclaims, rushing down to his side. As she approaches, the spirit doesn't react like it had done before. Does it no longer see her as a threat? Or is it because its current mission is at an end? "Are you okay?" she asks. Luke nods slowly, giving her a pat on the arm before turning to Blaze expectantly. The spirit steps back onto the dais. Once both feet are planted firmly on its surface, the spirit's power rushes out of Blaze in an instant, a cold wind finally blowing itself away. His body unwinds as his shadow falls back asleep, its dominating presence fading to a dull throb along his left shoulder. He can't help but let out a sigh of relief as he steps down. It feels as though he's just awoken from one of his long naps. "Are you kids all right?" Sir Taylor calls from above. Blaze gives him a thumbs up. "Yep." "Let's go," Luke says, reaching for Amber's hand and pulling her along back towards the stairs. His eyes are having some trouble staying raised, frequently dropping to the floor. Something heavy weighs on his mind, no doubt. "Thank you," he says to Sir Taylor, slowly and methodically as to not trip up. "We are, going now." "So soon?" the Shask asks, mild disappointment befalling his mechanical face. "I hope you learned all that you needed, young Cerberus." He gestures back down the hallway. Its exit from here but a small blotch of light against the yellow sandstone and shifting amalgam of beings. Even though they're on their way out, the three of them are still shadowed by some being or another. Sir Taylor stopped halfway back, needing to return to his work. From there, eyes gaze upon their journey cautiously, making sure that the children don't wander off to places that they shouldn't be. Luke drags Amber along behind him at a quick pace, his urgent stride bordering on a light jog. Blaze does his best to keep up. Things don't start to unwind until they make it back to the archway. Amber fumbles around for yet another keystone as Luke stares off into the void, lost in thought. Blaze almost wants to ask him what's going on, but a blast of cold air beats him to it. Amber holds a white keystone in her hand, and beyond the archway he sees the familiar sight of the ASM campus. A weight lifts itself off his shoulders as he gazes upon, well, home. Stepping through the rip, it feels nice to have the cold air against his body once again. If he spent any more time beneath that hot sun, he would have started overheating in his sweater. Amber takes over as the guide this time, walking Luke through the school's campus quietly. The Cerberus, however, keeps his eyes down on the ground rather on that of his surroundings. Blaze can only roll his eyes as he drags his feet behind the two. He eyes the fanciful halls, but he sees fourth terms slipping in and out of the doors. He looks to the dorms, but feels no draw to them. He is tired, but not for a bed. When they get to the lake and the long stretch of vivid green grass, he stops. He glances over at the willow tree in the near distance, its leaves gently brushing the surface of the water. "Blaze?" Amber asks. He steals a glance in her direction. She's stopped walking, probably sensing his hesitation. "Go on," he assures her. Amber's brow furrows, confused by his statement. "Aren't you coming with us?" Blaze just shakes his head. His body hurts, his magic is agitated, his temper is worn thin, and frankly, none of this is even his problem to begin with. Sure, if not for him, Amber would have likely struggled to get things done.
But as for the rest of it, it seems like the others have it all under control. He only helped because Ethan asked. Involving himself further feels like he'd only complicate things even more. He's not looking to be branded as a shard hunter. Best to stay away. It'd be better if I didn't, he answers. He turns towards the willow tree and adds, "You know where to find me." He feels Amber and Luke's gazes linger on him as he strides across the grass, heading towards his favorite resting spot. With each step he takes, the heavier the world weighs on his battered body. The soft rustle of the grass beneath his feet makes him smile. He had only been away for half of the cycle, yet the sight of the greenery makes him feel as if it had been many years instead. He brushes aside the curtain cast by the willow, its leaves soft to the touch. Inside, the cool shade curls itself around his figure welcomingly. He takes his seat at the base of the tree, its trunk his backrest, and its swaying leaves his calming melody. Third-term classes are over for another cycle. This fact doesn't worry him. Not anymore. He does feel bad, but it's also not the end of the world. Besides receiving a very strong reaming from his teacher next cycle, he's far from being punished for skipping. Maybe he'd care more if he wasn't so exhausted. If anything, he learned a lot more from his little adventure than he would have from all of his classes combined. His fingers run through the grass on either side of him, brushing against the rough bark of the willow's roots, feeling the moistness from the lake in the dirt. The lake's waterline has dipped below its rim. ASTRIA is certainly due for more rainfall soon. Taking a long, deep breath, Blaze closes his eyes and settles into nature, letting the tranquility connect his body to the vast ocean of energy that all of ASTRIA sits upon, as his consciousness drifts away into darkness. Okay, now it's chapter 12. Lucre walks close to Amber's side, careful not to let her out of his sight. As magical as ASTRIA still is to him, with its high buildings of bright stone and a mass of beings all in one place unlike anything he's seen before in his life, he just can't bring himself back into focus. They make it to the big road, and he has to force himself to look down at the ground to avoid the bombardment of all the lights and colors. Last time they were enthralling. Now, if he sees one of them, he might get sick instead. "Lucre?" Amber asks, her voice full of concern. He reaches out and holds her hand, squeezing it tight. He doesn't want to speak yet. He doesn't want to be forced to repeat what he saw. He'll say it once, and then he'll try and forget it. If only she had been there with him. It was all so stunning. He could hardly believe that his ancestors made all of that by themselves. It's amazing and heartbreaking all at the same time. His people have fallen so far from their glory days. He read so many stories about the Great Pyramid and its importance to his kind, about the ancient city of Solari and its sudden disappearance into the void. But actually being there makes it all feel real and not just some distant memory preserved in tiny fragments inside of books destined to turn to dust. Amber guides him down the road, the noise of other wizards filling his ears and making his heart leap. Deep down, he's happy to be back on ASTRIA. There's still so much of the place he hasn't seen yet, but that happiness only goes so far. "Amber! Lucre!" A distant being calls their names, causing Lucre to raise his gaze. Through the crowd, he sees Ethan rushing towards them, his cape billowing behind him as he pushes the brim of his hat upwards to reveal his face. The husk beams at the sight of them, relief glowing in his eyes. Lucre forces a smile across his own lips. It's nice to see him again, too. "How did it go?" he asks Amber first, jumping right to business. "Where's Blaze?" "He's resting," Amber replies slowly. Her face twitches awkwardly, not seeming to know what emotion it wants to display. "Where are the others?" "Kim's at class, Jake's resting, and Electro's..." Ouch, Ethan answers. We're still free to use the shop, though. All right. He turns to Luke, and his smile falters. He clearly wants to say something, but he doesn't know what or how. Lucre feels the same way. As much as he's happy to see Ethan again, he can't think of a good greeting. The moment passes. Ethan turns away and gestures for the two to follow him. Through the crowd they push, eventually coming upon a building painted blue and white. Its interior is dark, no being in sight. Hanging on the other side of the clear door is a sign that reads "Closed" in bold letters, but it doesn't deter the wizards. Ethan steps up to the door, walks through the door, turns around and opens it for Amber and Lucre. Amber steps forward, nodding at the husk in thanks. The Cerberus, however, has to stand still to process. Last he checked, Ethan couldn't walk through doors. Is this a special kind of door that anyone can walk through? It can't be, since Amber didn't follow him. Or maybe she didn't want to leave Lucre standing in the street all alone. He touches the door. It's cold, and when he pulls his hand away, he leaves behind a white smudge wherever he made contact. It's also unnaturally smooth. Whatever the door is made out of, it's not wood or metal or sand. Beyond the door, the two wizards stare at the prince with bewildered expressions. He starts addressing Ethan, though he still can't quite put his question into words. So he pokes at the door again to see if that helps him. You... Oh, Ethan mutters, realizing what Lucre might be trying to say. He shifts his weight uncomfortably and folds his arms, his smile appearing sad and detached. Yes, I can walk through things now that I have Shadowback. Lucre walks inside, and the door swings shut behind him, a little bell ringing merrily in his wake. The room is cold, something sweet hanging in the air. He smells a collection of fruits, but he can't quite name them. They all smell so familiar, reminding him of fruits grown on the palace grounds at home, and yet he gets the feeling that none of them are any that came from Mirage. How could they be? Mirage hasn't traded anything with any other island in a long time. Ethan raises his hand, and in an instant the windows to the outside turn black, blocking out all light and sound. Panic grips Lucre's heart and squeezes it tight as he sucks in an anxious breath. Then, suddenly, lights beam down from the ceiling. Lucre blinks a few times to regain its bearings. "How's Jake, by the way?" Amber inquires as she steps away from the wall, and a little white switch mounted on it. "I wouldn't be surprised if he caught a cold," Ethan replies somewhat dismissively. "You can check on him later." He turns to Lucre expectantly. "What did you learn?" Lucre closes his eyes and takes a deep breath, readying himself to recount what he saw. In his mind's eye, he can see the room clearly, a small box that stretched upwards so far he could hardly see its ceiling. Each wall was completely blank at first, apart from evenly spaced lines that divided each wall into a series of stacked rectangles. In the room's center was a small stone podium, empty, though the curved indent in its center suggested that it used to hold something, most likely the shard. He followed the spirit's instruction, placing his hand onto one of the walls and, through his body heat, asked his question. Where is Ryan Ashblade hiding the shard? And before his very eyes, he watched the walls burst to life with pictures and colors that spiraled up into the darkness, each small scene a story from history. Starting from the left wall and moving to the right, he read the following. The followers of Day and Night were locked in fierce battle for many months. The nation of magic remained strong, safe within their borders, but with limited resources and dwindling numbers. The Night first blessed his followers with magic beyond comprehension, but with the Day's command over her mortal army growing, the Night saw no other option but to intervene directly. He turned to his youngest child and commanded for the conflict to be brought to an end. He gave his child the strength needed to control the Divine's greatest creation of all, the font of magic. The Child of Night descended onto Astria and sought the counsel of the Night's 7 most loyal followers. Together, they decided what was to happen to the followers of Day. Using the font, the Child of Night sacrificed itself to spawn a golden wall of stars. Within it, the ocean disappeared. And so did the followers of Day. That night, the stars danced with the victors. The Knight did not rejoice in his followers' safety. The sky thereafter became lightless as he mourned the loss of his child. He took the font and shattered it, hiding it away to prevent further harm. One was given to the Cerberus, guardians of past and future. One was thrown deep into the ground, beneath tree and stone. One the Knight kept for himself. But the shards will be found and united. One of fire, surrounded by metal. One of ice, friend of the mountain. One of shadow, with a heart full of light. He opens his eyes again to find Ethan lost in thought, Amber standing quietly at his side. Hiding the 3rd shard inside of a fragment shadow, he hums. It's smart, but... The husk frowns with deep concern. It appears there's part of the story that he's having a hard time wrapping his mind around. Ethan pinches the bridge of his nose, squeezing his eyes shut. He tilts his head down to have the brim of his hat hide his face from the other two. No, the husk states harshly. He raises his hat just enough to where he can give Lucre a deathly glare as he continues. No, it has to be a lie. Lucre can't help but shrug back. He doesn't know what he's talking about, but his assertion isn't wrong. Without the shard, it could be inaccurate. That must be it. Ethan nods quickly. That must be. Still, his eyes continue to search for something. But which one would have agreed? He mutters to himself. He begins to pace back and forth, completely lost in frantic thought. Luke returns to Amber, confused. She catches his gaze and shrugs back, shaking her head. She's probably wondering the same thing Lucre is. What's going on with him all of a sudden? Is he alright? Is there something wrong with what Lucre said? Without warning, Ethan steps up to Lucre, his hands clamping down on his shoulders and drawing him close. The brim of his hat brushes the top of Lucre's head as he leans in close. His dark eyes bore into Lucre as if trying to extract an answer from him for himself. Did you learn anything else? He desperately asks, giving him a rough shake. No, he lies, wishing it were true. The husk releases him with a small shove, grumbling something tense and angry beneath his breath. Eventually, he shakes his head hopelessly. Surrounded by metal, he can hear Ethan say, though his voice grows distant with each word he speaks. Kendon, perhaps? Maybe, Amber tentatively agrees, who he can barely even hear. But where? Ethan lets out a growl, but now Lucre's thoughts have fully absorbed him. He's not sure how he should feel. Relieved or angry? Both? Neither? Something else entirely? But those images will forever be burned into his mind, and he blames no one except himself. And Ryan, whoever he is. A hand lands on Lucre's shoulders and gives him a firm shake, bringing him back to reality. Ethan's fingers are as cold as ever as the wizard stare at him with concern. Is there something you want to talk about? Amber asks softly, approaching his side. His eyes sting. He raises a hand to rub them and finds a thin layer of tears waiting to fall. He can't help but be brought back to that dark night in the ruined palace, having his whole world crashing down around him as his new friends comforted him. With Ethan and Amber by his side once more, he almost spills his thoughts once more. But he bites his tongue instead. This isn't something he's ready to share with anyone just yet. He only knows the story, but not the truth. No, he answers. Electro strides through the streets of Asandra gracefully. Even though it has only been 18 years, he's still expected for some of the old pathways to have shifted, so it's a pleasant surprise to be able to retrace his old footsteps. Where are we going? Shadow asks. It swirls around anxiously the more his anticipation grows. Can't you figure it out yourself? He replies. Would you want me to do that? He doesn't think he'll ever get used to not only having his body inhabited by some other entity, but also having said entity be able to read his thoughts. Though after their first conversation in the infirmary, it has mostly withdrawn itself. We're going to see an old friend of mine, he finally answers, with a great big sneer of disgust. He jabs a thumb at his chest, right where he feels the concentration of Shadow's power. You stay out of my way, okay? Shadow frowns, its cold face etching itself onto his skin. Okay. He comes to a crossroad, one that he's quite familiar with. He almost laughs when he sees the front door, adorned with its old snowflake crest. The Void Terror didn't even change that. He raps on the door, hard and fast. A cryomancer he's never seen before answers. Yes? He asks. Is Jay home? Electro inquires. No sooner does he speak, the wizard in question appears in the hallway. How fun it is to see his face fill with dread. Ah, there he is. The cryomancer that answered the door turns around. For you. Electro? Jay only breathes back in disbelief. Yep, it's me, all right. Electro chirps, inviting himself into the house. No being stops him. He smiles ear to ear, arms out wide to trap the man in as big of a hug as he can. Jay squirms in his grasp. How's my dearest brother-in-law doing? You're Electro? The other wizard hums in amazement. He steps forward as Electro releases poor Jay, hand outstretched. I'm Ian, Jay's husband. Husband, eh? Electro hums back as they shake. He casts Jay the smuggest look he can muster. All that whining and complaining. Good on you. What are you doing here, Electro? Jay asks sharply. He glares in an attempt to look intimidating, but he has hardly ever been the type. If Electro wasn't so scrawny looking, Jay would certainly be scared witless. Why, I'm just here to have a chat about my daughter, Electro replies. His clothes begin to spark with delight as he gestures to the living room. Why don't we sit down? Reluctantly, Jay leads the way into the living room, taking his favorite rocking chair. Even though Electro was the one that suggested sitting down, he stands before the sofa with his hands in his pockets. Ian trails in behind the two, looking to Jay with confusion written all over his face. Jay, what's going on here? He demands. His daughter, isn't Kimberly yours? Is he related to Kel? What? Do you have a sibling I don't know about? Jay lets out a sigh of defeat, head bowed and hands clasped in his lap. It gives Electro the space to pile onto his troubles. Keeping secrets from your family now, he hums gleefully. He watches Jay intently as he continues, Never bothered to mention that Kelsey's your sister? He could practically feel the aura of surprise radiating from Ian. Still, the traitorous cryomancer's lips remain tightly pressed shut, his glare becoming sharper with each word spoken. Younger sister, actually, Electro corrects, continuing on his little rant. He turns to Ian and flashes him the widest smile he can. She was in the same term as me and Ryan. You remember Ryan, don't you? The little void terror of ASM. Wordlessly, Ian nods along, even as his face is lost in a sea of confusion and questions.
I should have known. Electro sneers back at Jay. Your darling little sister was being led astray by some wild electromancer. Wouldn't their child be better off in some other being's hands? Just to make sure that everything's kept in line. A full bolt of energy leaps from his looming figure, striking the wall just behind Jay's seat. It leaves a mark behind. The mark it leaves behind steams black as the wallpaper curls, its edges glowing red with scorch. Whose idea was it to send me to die? He asks. I wanted what was best for Kelsey. Jay speaks at last, his voice heavy with anger. I did too, you know, Electra retorts. Jay stands sharply, jabbing an accusatory finger in his direction. You didn't deserve her. It's nice to see you haven't changed much, Electro hums, a sadistic smile creeping its way across his mouth once more. But to kill me and steal my child, stars above, I never expected you go that far. It's not theft, Jay defends. Kelsey asked me to. Of course she did, Electro laughs. Who else would she have turned to? Not Ryan, obviously. Keep that name out of your mouth, Jay growls back sharply. Or what? Scared he'll come knocking if I say too much? He waves a hand at Jay, an old point proven true. See, I tried to warn you about him, Jay, but you didn't listen, and now he's backstabbed you too. He said you weren't going to come back. He said that the seals would hold. Yeah, well, look at where trusting his word got you, Electra replies gleefully. Wasn't it nice living in fear all that time, bracing yourselves for my inevitable return? Ice springs up from below, jagged spikes that cut through his clothes and dig into his skin with their chilled touch. Jay's feet sparkle with frost as he glares murderously back at the Electromancer. We should have just killed you ourselves, he states. Murder wouldn't have made Kel very happy, Electra replies. Jay's magic twists itself into him even more. Wherever their tips touch begin to ache with pain. Jay, what on ASTRIA are you doing? Ian exclaims. Cal never took our bloodline seriously, Jay says, ignoring his partner. I've worked so hard to preserve it. Electro chuckles. You really let that stupid family legacy of yours get to your head. No sooner are his words spoken than one of the spikes sinks deeper into his ribs. No doubt it has cut skin, but it's so cold he's numb to the pain. Shadow swirls within him, curling around the spike as it stems his wounds. You think you'll be able to explain this to Kimberly? He asks. Jay doesn't react at the mention of her name. No feeling flashes across his face other than the murderous glare that already paints it. The man must already be resigned to whatever fallout may occur. He doesn't fear his family anymore. He has already had his way with her. With her life. Phrasing. Callous. The icy knives twist themselves further into his body. He wants to flinch, but Jay's magic holds him in place. If he were to move, he'd only add to his pain. He can feel Shadow's rising anger within, a dense ball of fire that thrashes against the ice. It's getting impatient. Jay, stop! Ian cries, stepping forward. His hand is outstretched, but Jay gets to him first. He waves in Ian's direction, creating a drift that pushes his husband back. I'm sorry this is how you had to find out. He speaks, little remorse in his voice. The ice presses even further into Electro's body as he smiles through the pain and frostbite. Jay is being purposefully slow, wanting him to feel every little moment as his life ebbs away. If it weren't for Shadow, he might have passed out by now. He's in no danger here. Go on, Void Terror, he quietly urges. Just a little more. Ian grits his teeth and holds out his hands before him.
Ice of his own springs from the floor, weaving its way between his fingers before eventually blossoming into the head of a giant hammer. He lifts the sparkling blue weapon high over his head and brings it crashing down on Jay's ice drift, shattering it in a single blow. Jay's attention immediately shifts as his husband surges forward, intent on stopping Jay and his murderous plan. He leaps backwards, narrowly missing Ian's wide swing. Wherever he steps, the floor around him freezes. "Stay out of this, Ian," he says, his hands raised, ready for combat. Ian shakes his head. "I'm not going to be an accomplice to murder, Jay." Jay's gaze meets Electro once more, his hatred burning bright. Then he clenches one of his hands into a tight fist. He can feel the spikes surge their way forward in an instant, piercing through his body entirely. They emerge from his sides and around his shoulders, snaps and pops rebounding off the walls of the living room. Ian spins around, eyes wide with horror. His body grows cold, dropping away into nothingness. He only gets the briefest flare of anger as Shadow finally surges forward. Its essence expands, filling his body with its might, pressing itself against his consciousness. Raw and untamed power crushes the ice within him, freeing Electro from his icy prison, its stare trained solely on Jay. Beneath the Shadow's gaze, the murderous cryomancer appears to stiffen. All of his gusto dies as he stares back at the awakened horror. "I won't stand by," Shadow speaks, "and let you kill this wizard." If Electro could smile, he would. Thank the stars Shadow isn't as heartless as it used to be. Now Jay really has it coming. Ian turns back to Jay in an instant and makes his strike, thrusting his hammer forward. It catches the stunned murderer off guard, and he finds himself pinned to the living room wall. He lets out a pained yell as he claws at the ice, trying to push it away. Ian, however, holds firm. At the same time, Shadow raises a hand, the flow of its power shifting. It calls forth the darkness of the room to wrap itself around Jay, tearing his arms away from the hammer's head and pinning him to the wall. Slowly, step by step, it makes its way across the room. Though he's numb, he can still feel his innards shift around inside of him, punctured and frozen, kept together only by the fragment's power. It reaches out to Jay, its dark hands stretching beyond his own, making his fingers fall limp against the cryomancer's chest as its essence sink beneath his clothes and skin. His squirming is brought to an immediate halt, his eyes widening and his breath becoming shallow. "I'll make sure this is as painful as possible," it promises in a quiet hiss. Its fingers twitch, and so too does Jay's body. His jaw drops open, but no sound emits from it. He has no idea what it's doing to Jay, but so far the man doesn't look very comfortable in his own skin. This is what he gets for provoking the divine unaware. Electro just came for a nice chat, not to torture the guy like this. Taunt him, sure, maybe a small scuffle. He's not done with his conversation with Jay, though he doubts Shadow will just hand back his body right now, injuries and all. Just a few more words. Can it hear his thoughts now? Will it even listen? "Hey, let me talk to him," he tries, willing it out into the cold, dense darkness that encases him. Shadow's looming presence turns, a Goliath that stands firmly in control. "No." "Come on, I'm not done with—" "No," it interrupts forcefully. "At least ask him about Ryan for me," he says. "We still have to find that void terror." Shadow audibly sighs, heaving the chest a bit too much. "Where's Ryan?" It growls to its captive. Jay makes a strange, choking noise, attempting to keep down his words. Shadow's fingers twist, and the man blurts out the answer. I don't know. He cut contact years ago. I haven't heard from him since the pyramid." That's not entirely surprising to hear, but still disappointing. He figured that the two of them would have kept in contact somehow, what with his Shadow having been locked up all this time. I guess that hoping your enemy never returns is better than preparing for doomsday. Shadow retracts its hand from Jay, leaning away from the man. He takes a shuddery breath as his head hangs limp, finally released from the fragment's power. Its angry stirring is gone now as it announces, I'm done with him. Hang on, I still want to tell him something. If you insist. It relents. He feels his mouth warm. Just a test, he parts his lips and sucks in a gulp of air. He can feel it run down his throat and expel itself into his chest. He can keep sucking forever and never fill his lungs. Stars above, Che really did a number on him. Staring at him now, Electro's unsure if these words will resonate with the wizard. He doesn't know how much of a heart this murderer has left inside of him. I'm sorry, Ian, he says. And thank you. Shadow turns his body to face Jay's husband. For how much longer? Who stares at the wall with a forlorn scowl, still holding his hammer cautiously. His eyes shift to him, and he asks, You're Kimberly's birth father? I am, he confirms. The cryomancer looks him up and down, quietly. His eyes reflect only parts of the horrific sight. Electro is riddled with holes that ooze with dark mist, the edges of his clothes stained with blood. He must be wondering how the wizard before him is even still alive. And Jay knew this entire time? He eventually speaks, his gaze returning to Electro's face. He did. Ian turns away from the scene, one hand raising to his forehead. Stars above, what am I supposed to say to her? She doesn't know yet, he says. I can't promise it'll stay that way for long, but I didn't come here to reclaim her. I came to get back at Jay for what he did, nothing more. Ian gives him a confused look as he begins to lay out his thoughts. Look, she might be my child, but I didn't raise her. If she ever asks me, I won't lie to her. But she's still your daughter. It's up to you if you want to tell her in full or not. Ian nods. He turns back to Jay, still strung up on the wall. All right. I'm going to have Shadow let him down now, he warns. Do it. Shadow lifts a hand, gesturing to Jay, and the darkness that surrounds him recedes. The man drops unceremoniously to the floor, falling limp. Ian stares down at him, quietly absorbing the scene and sifting through his own thoughts. Electro, however, is done here. Well, he hums, take care, Ian. Yeah, you too, he mutters back in a daze. Just as Shadow turns away from the scene, he sees ice encircle Jay, rising to securely cover his body in a thick dome. Then Shadow steps out onto the street, shutting the door to the house behind it. Get some rest, it says. Yeah, he sighs. He doesn't need to be told twice. He's already letting his consciousness drift off now that he's away from that maniac. He has quite the injuries to heal from, so he might as well let Shadow do its work in peace. Thanks for the backup. Shadow doesn't answer. Its presence recedes once more as it's drawn away from his body, distracted. Chapter 13. Asna. The old Fenny looks up from himself. Okay, I read that right. The old Fenny looks up from himself, his fingers mid-fidget with a gold button. His navy blue council cape is draped over his shoulder, freed from the shadows of his robe for the time being. His tired frown deepens as he gives Ethan a once-over. Ethan's hands stray to his cape in an instant. Sorry, Asna shakes his head. Don't apologize. Just make it quick. Still, Ethan draws his cape close to his body, trying to hide himself inside it. His eyes dart away from the Fenny, choosing instead to fixate on the papers on his desk. Electro's shadow has one of the shards now, he says. We're still trying to find Ryan, and the third... He pauses to lick his lips. The third is in my father's possession. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices that Asna barely reacts to the news. He closes his eyes and releases a long breath. If the spirit is in possession of a shard, then the font shouldn't be a problem anymore, correct? All there is left to do is stop... No, the font is still a problem. Ethan interrupts. I just... He closes his eyes and lets out a conflicted huff. I feel like I should ask him about the shard, but I don't want to see him either. Asna's eyebrows raise. Why not? Ethan shakes his head. He doesn't know what he should say. His emotions swirl in his chest in a massive storm of confusion he has yet to sort out. I can't help you if you don't tell me what's wrong, Asna adds. I know. The Fenny turns to his desk and sits down patiently, waiting for Ethan to find his words. As much as he appreciates Asna being here for him, he's also keeping the council member from his meeting, whenever it's supposed to start. He lowers his head, his hand hiding his face from the Fenny's watchful gaze. I think he lied to me. He has been trying not to believe it, but deep down, he knows that it's true. What Lucre told him earlier about what he saw in the pyramid is accurate. He has been trying his best to fool himself into believing otherwise, but he can't. Not with all the history that he has read. Reality is now staring at him squarely in the face, and he can't deny it any longer. It was an event well documented by many close to the generals. They all spoke of the arrival of a fragment shadow, the first one seen since the children of the spirits left ASTRIA. It planned to use the font of magic to bring the Great War to an end, but it wanted to hear the wizard's thought on what it should do. Thus, the border barrier was agreed upon, and that is what ASTRIA got. Once the fragment shadow left the castle, however, it was never seen again, and shortly after the wizard's victory, the starry night sky fell dark for 6 long cycles. The event was commonly described as the spirit of shadow and mourning. Ethan, shadow, always wondered which fragment used the font, but that question never got an answer. Father always skirted around it, and none of the written records could say for certain either. But the pyramid said his youngest child very specifically. At the time of the Great War, none of them was the youngest fragment, but he doesn't think it would have even cared about the war, let alone have listened to Father's request to stop it. Though now he can't even ignore what he has been dismissing this entire time. 2 very important stories that have been written into history by all of ASTRIA. For according to the ancient Astrians, the spirit of shadow has always had 100 children. The youngest of this pantheon was Senti, the shadow of the night, the founder of what became the Guardians of Light, and who fought the heartbroken dragon and sent it into a slumber that it remains in to this very cycle. But despite Father telling him that he was Senti, Ethan could not lay claim to those accomplishments. They happened well before he was made. The Knight protected the world once from its own sibling, and left behind an organization of knights meant to guard the beings of ASTRIA in its absence. It would never have turned a blind eye to the suffering of the wizards, especially not at the hands of the Guardians. He could never wrap his mind around how there could have been a knight before him. And now it feels like everything is starting to make sense, and the truth only makes him feel dizzy and sick. Lied to you? Asna hums back. He should nod, but instead shakes his head, trying to rid himself of his thoughts. I don't know why he did. It's so... It doesn't make any sense why he would. He lifts his head to get a glimpse at Asna's face. The old Fenny stares back with a troubled frown, his fingers laced together a bit too tightly to simply be contemplating. Perhaps it wasn't his intention to lie to you, he offers, his ears twitch uncomfortably as he adds, perhaps you weren't yet ready to know the truth. The truth of what? Ethan yells back in a fit of anger. The truth about what I am, what I'm supposed to be? Why tell me that I'm the knight when the knight already exists? Why fool me into believing I represent something that I don't? He pauses to take a breather, pinching his nose hard as it tingles and the soft drum in his chest pounds faster. What are they, then, him and Shadow, to Father? A replacement? A stand-in? A fantasy? Why force the mantle of the knight onto another fragment? Why keep the secret all this time? Did he want them to find out on their own? Or was he... selfish? He both does and doesn't want to see Father. He wants to confront him on everything that he has ever said, ever lied about. But just the thought of seeing him again makes Ethan seethe. He wants nothing to do with him. Asna shifts, leaning forward in his chair. His emerald eyes are dull, yet firm. Then you should speak with him. Speculation alone can create unnecessary wedges between beings. I'm sure that the spirit meant well. What kind of being is able to look at their child and knowingly lie to them? Ethan asks through gritted teeth. The Fenny shifts in his chair and looks away, his ears finally drooping. Is that what families do? No, Asna answers. He reaches across his desk for a single piece of paper and stares down at it momentarily. No being is perfect. It could be that they are prideful, or scared, or even ignorant. But we have an excuse. The spirit, however, does not act without purpose. He folds the paper in his fingers and quietly slips it into his robe. Just like any other being, he has his reasons. But unlike any other being, he is privy to knowledge that we all must find ourselves. Ethan narrows his eyes. The Fenny's platitudes don't make him feel any better, only more confused. One would think that a child of the Great Spirit would understand him better than any being ever. At least, he thought he understood. Now, he doesn't know. Asna stands from his desk. I must go now. The council is waiting on me. Of course, Ethan mutters. He steps aside, clearing Asna's way to the door of his office. As the Fenny passes, he gives the husk a stiff pat on his shoulder. Talk to him, he gently advises once more, before disappearing into the maze of the infirmary. Alone, Amber walks back to her dorm, the stars already in sharp view overhead as the light of the cycle clings to the edges of the sky for as long as it can. Windows and lamps burn with small firelights, illuminating the city of Asandra with their soft glows. She might have walked with Ethan if not for the fact that he had left with Lucre much earlier before the sky began to even change, offering to house the Cerberus at his dorm for the time being, while they continued to sort out this whole mess. So, of course, they had to beat the onset of the nighttime cold. Her head is empty of thought as she stares at the path ahead of her. She's not looking forward to class next cycle. She has a sinking feeling that the others will start their planning without her. The buildings give way to the open green of the small lake. The library stands tall at the other end, bathed in shadow. No light winks in its windows since it's closed for the night. All students and staff already shooed out its doors long ago. The still water shimmers with starlight as it reflects the sky above. Her eyes, however, are drawn to the willow. Tiny rays of yellow-green light emanate from the tree's long branches that sweep the grassy ground. Odd. Most beings are already home or in their dorms by now. Curious, she decides to approach the tree. The grass masks her footsteps as she strides across the open space, her breathing the only noise she can hear. As she nears the tree, the feeling of magic grows against her skin, wrapping around her arms and legs with its mist in a strange sort of hug. It welcomes her presence, drawing her closer. She pulls the curtain of leaves to reveal the source of the strange light. Flowers of all shapes and colors bloom around the tree's base, their petals alight with magic. The air swirls with tiny specks of yellow, dancing through the darkness without a care. Along the tree's bark climb thin strands of ivy pulsing with energy. The aroma is sweet like sugar, yet earthy and somewhat damp, but not in a bad way. At the origin point of all of this wondrous nature is Blaze, his eyes closed and body stretched out as he slumbers in the shade. The flowers crowd the sides of his figure as small vines wrap themselves around his arms and feet. The aroma beckons her forward. She hesitates at first, her eyes cautiously trained on the naturist. Is he sleeping? Would he mind her inspecting some of the flowers? She lets the willow's leaves. She lets the willow's leaves she had been holding up fall, the curtain closing behind her. As they brush against the grass, the naturist doesn't stir or shift. A good sign. Perhaps she will get a little closer. She takes her first step forward, carefully lowering it down onto the grass before her. She still watches Blaze tensely, worried that he'll wake up at any moment and reprimand her for even being here. Second step forward. Still, he rests quietly. His goggles reflect the orange lights hovering above his head, making it look like dancing stars floating across the painted sky. Third step forward. The flowers seem to brighten, as if they sense her approach, and want to try and impress her by outshining all of the other flowers around the naturist. And much as she finds it cute, how are they able to do that on their own? Fourth step forward. Blaze's body tenses in an instant, causing her to freeze where she stands. She watches with dread as the scene unfolds rapidly before her. The floating lights fizzle out. The flowers snap shut and retreat into the dirt, taking with them their sweet smells. The ivy shrivels and shrinks. The vines release their hold over his body. By the time Blaze opens his eyes, the magical scene is gone, replaced by the darkness of night and the chill of the cold Asandra air. He takes a moment to blink, bringing himself back into the waking world. Amber just stands off to the side, her hands clasped over her mouth, regret making her gut churn. Did she just ruin something special? She didn't mean to. She just wanted to admire the flowers. Blaze sits up and turns to her, though in the tree's darkness she can't make out his face. Amber? Her breath catches in her throat. He doesn't sound upset with her. Not yet, anyway. She shifts one of her feet backwards, a half step, bracing herself. In the silence, the naturist looks at his surroundings. Nightfall already, he asks with a long sigh. He leans forward, draping his arms over his knees, turning his attention to the ground, and rubs his hands on the sides of his face. He's still absorbed by the world around him. How long will it be before he turns his attention to her? Amber wants to move, but she doesn't have the courage to do so. Should she run away? Should she continue her approach? Should she wander down to the lake's edge, even? Do you need something? Blaze finally asks her. His voice is flat and tired. Her skin crawls under his gaze. Is he judging her? Is he upset with her? Will he hit me? She replies in a small chirp. I just wanted to see the flowers. The silhouette's head tilts to one side, processing the statement. It's not long she feels the coolness of his gaze turn away from her face. letting the heat of embarrassment flare in her cheeks. Blaze bends over, extending his hands down towards the dirt below. Between where his hands hover, a little light sprouts from the grass, shooting upwards before spinning and unfurling its petals into that of a shimmering flower. Its glow illuminates Blaze's hands, gently cupped around the flower as it blooms, and his face furrowed in concentration. The petals pulse with magic, a soft vibration breaking the stillness of the air. Still, Amber remains rooted in place, unwilling to approach the naturist. Once more, his gaze turns to her expectantly. He nods to the flower, inviting her over. The flower's glow dances in the reflection of his goggles, hiding his eyes behind it. He waits patiently for Amber to work up her courage to approach, a slow and reluctant trudge across the grass to where he sits. She strides around his hands, looking down at the tiny, delicate flower. It's not the petals themselves that glow, but the veins that run through them, each one filled with flowing starlight. As she stares, she lowers herself to her knees to get a better look. Blaze draws back his hands, his fingers twitching as he gives Amber more room to gaze upon the little plant. It sparkles and winks back at her, its light bringing her robe and face into clear color in its presence. The flower itself isn't exactly white, but more of a light purple. Its center houses tiny yellow-orange orbs that appear to hardly give off much glow. She doesn't realize she's reaching out to touch the magical plant until she sees her own hands slip into view. Her outstretched fingers curl inwards sharply as she stops herself. She shouldn't. You can pick it up, Blaze reassures her, gesturing to the flower. She hesitates, biting her bottom lip. Gradually, her fingers begin to stretch forward towards the delicate light before her, brushing the bright petals against the sides of her palms. It's warm against her skin, vibrating with the magic that pulses through it. She lifts it from the ground with ease. Though it sprouted from the dirt, it has no stem to speak of, letting the plant float atop the grass as its support instead. She brings it to her face and, closing her eyes, takes a deep sniff, almost burrowing her nose into the plant's center. Once again, she's hit with that sweet planty smell from earlier. It tickles her nose and swirls in her lungs. As she exhales, she opens her eyes again and finds that some of the orange orbs are starting to rise from the flower, whirling into the air to chase away some of the darker shadows. She follows them quietly, watching them dance. Her mouth opens, stiff and somewhat dry. I didn't know you could do this. Blaze is silent, shifting in the grass. Amber tears her eyes away from the orange orbs to find him leaning back against the willow's trunk, his head turned to her. The glowing reflections continue to shield his eyes as in the night's shadows. His expression remains unchanged. Do you like it? He speaks slowly, almost as if he were scared to even ask her such a question. Amber nods back. It's beautiful. The naturist hardly reacts to her answer. She was expecting a smile at least, a twitch of his lips, or maybe even a proud huff, but no, nothing about his face changes. It remains in a strange, half-disappointed, half-sympathetic scowl. To whom these emotions are directed, she can't tell. He raises a hand, his fingers closed around something invisible, and begins to turn his wrist as if he were twisting a dial. Amber's eyes are drawn towards the flower once more, as its whitish-purple glow slowly fades into a rich blue, then gradually turning a light green, and onward into soft yellow. Her eyes widen with astonishment. When the flower turns hot pink, Blaze lets out a chuckle. You're cute when you're in awe. Amber looks up in an instant, her cheeks flaring once more. She doesn't know whether to take his statement as a compliment or a twisted insult. So she presses her lips together and says nothing at all. The moment of levity passes, and in its place, Blaze frowns once more. His lips part briefly, something on his mind that he's debating on sharing with her. Eventually, he asks her, "Do you hate me?" Amber bites her tongue to stop herself from blurting anything back at him. On that level, right then and there, she does, yes. But when she actually thinks about the question more, her emotions become confused and unclear. There's a reason why the phrase, "actions speak louder than words," rings true. For despite all he's said to her face and all his attitude, he's been more than selfless this cycle than any wizard she's been with so far. His shadow was helpful and caring, and now he has become nice. Does she hate him? I don't know, she replies, even as she gently leans away from him. Once again, she feels split. With all she remembers, she'd never want to be caught dead hanging out with Blaze of all beings. So why is the void within her oozing with recognition? Despite never knowing him personally, it still feels as though the two of them have been friends all this time. Maybe he reminds her of some other being she used to know, a being she hasn't remembered yet. Her head starts to ache, so she shifts the magic flower to one hand to free her other to rub her temples. Not now. Please, not now. "Are you all right?" Blaze asks, leaning forward, his body tensing. "Yeah," she answers quietly. The naturist lets out a slight breath of relief, though he remains alert regardless. It takes what's left of her willpower to push the void back down and wipe her eyes dry as tears sit ready to fall. She's been doing so well, keeping herself together. She wishes she was of more help this cycle than she was. She tried to put on a tough exterior, but it failed miserably, leaving her almost unable to talk to any being other than those she already knew. She stops massaging her head and simply holds it, bending forward to rest her elbows on the dirt in front of her. Her other hand sits on her knee, the flower's glow pulsing with a tiny amount of carefree warmth. "You're trying too hard," Blaze says. Amber sits up, her eyes watery. He sits with a slouch, arms crossed and hands draped lazily over his knees. Having gotten her attention, he raises a finger and points at her. "Whatever you're trying to do with yourself isn't working, and if you keep pushing it, there's a good chance you only do more harm than good." "But," she breathes back, though her hopes for a retort fall through and nothing comes to mind. She looks down at the flower she still holds as her throat constricts. Blaze shifts in the grass. "I've seen many beings at ASM try and reinvent themselves, and most of the time it doesn't work. It's not as simple as donning a new personality. You have to convince yourself and every being around you that that is who you are. And now is not the time to be doing things like that." Amber bites her tongue, like he'd know anything about wanting to become a different being. She just wants to understand who she was. She wants to be whole again, but she doesn't think he'll take her seriously if she were to try and explain all of that to him. What is he insinuating, then? That she should give up trying to change? That she's incapable of change? That no being will ever believe her change or support her trying to change? That she's destined to be stuck as some shy, emotional healer unable to offer any a helping hand beyond the infirmary? It's a very swift and thoughtless action. Her fingers curl around the flower, squeezing it in her tight grip, unleashing her boiling frustration on the tiny plant. Gah! His cry rings out sharply, filling her ears. The ground begins to rumble and shake as she lifts her head in alarm. Blaze is bent backwards, one hand clawing at his chest as the other trembles, trying to keep his body upright. He sputters for breath, something dark dripping down from his face. From where, she can't tell. Before she can do anything, the grass below splits open, and up into the dark night rises long, pointed tentacles. They bend towards her first, stretching over Blaze protectively. Amber's breath catches in her throat as her heart begins to pound in her head, frozen in place as they rush towards her. Then, they stop. Quivering only inches away from her head, the vines halt their advance. A giant claw towers over her, prepared to strike her through her sides with its vicious might. Deep in the shadows, Blaze's hand glows with his magic as he continues to wheeze. The rest of him, however, she can't even make out. Slowly, she looks back down at her hand. Her fingers uncurl from the glowing pink flower, its light weakly flickering back at her. Its petals are crushed, trying hopelessly to fall back into place as she gives it room to spread out. The filaments inside are all bent and broken. Yet it continues to shine. She drops it and scrambles back, out of the clutches of the dark green claw. The flower floats down to the grass, and it rests just in front of where she sat. Once she's moved away, the vines surge forward, clamping down and sealing the naturist within its clutches. She takes the opportunity to catch her breath and calm down. She rests her hands on the edge of the lake, the very tips of her fingers dipping themselves into the cold water. It all makes sense now. His pained expressions were real. Does that mean he could feel whatever his vines were feeling too? Was moving through the sand that difficult for him? What that spirit said, that there were beings that he couldn't harm, springs to mind as well. Especially since, well, those vines were definitely intent on harming her, and yet they didn't. Is it possible that his shadow's branding is still in effect? She closes her eyes, a dour blanket gradually being cast upon her. No wonder she's been feeling so strange about Blaze. It's because he's not really Blaze anymore. He's not the wizard she first met, altered to protect her against his own will. Did Ethan have Blaze venture with her because he knew she'd need the extra help? Or because he knew that Blaze would do anything to shield her from harm? Eventually, the vines shift once more, and she opens her eyes again. She watches them peel themselves back as they retreat back into the ground. The naturist is standing already, his hand dropping from his chest down to his stomach, as his other is shoved into his pocket. His head turns to her, and her blood runs cold. I... Amber stammers. I'm all right. He interrupts. Amber's mouth only hangs open, lost for words. She doesn't believe him. How could she? All cycle, she's been causing him so much pain. How can he be all right so fast? It's late, he adds calmly. He steps up to her and offers his free hand. Let's get back to the dorms. She starts to lift her arm, but stops herself. She doesn't feel like she deserves this gesture. She doesn't even know if he's doing it out of kindness or obligation. She just can't understand why. She twists and picks herself up off the ground instead, brushing her skirt off and avoiding his silent gaze. Now that she's standing, she can see his simple lie. There's a soft green glow emanating from his pocket. He's still healing. I'm sorry, she mutters. It's not like you knew what would happen, Blaze replies dismissively. Only a few beings know about. Not just that, she interrupts. She finally looks up at his darkened face, though now she can barely see past his goggles' reflection. There's no crimson sheen to his eyes as he regards her. I didn't treat you fairly, and I leaned on you too much. You shouldn't be forced to do things you don't want to do, either. She clasps her hands together, a weak flurry of golden sparkles falling from her fingers. Do you know what happened on Corridon? No, and I don't want to know, Blaze snaps suddenly. He scowls with frustration as he adds, I don't care what you say. I'm not a hero. Amber blinks, absorbing his outburst. That's not what she was expecting to hear. Maybe she should have made her question a little clearer. No, she replies, shaking her head. Do you know what happened to your shadow? Stars above. He breathes through gritted teeth, growing more irritated than she intended. He's the first one to turn away, starting to head towards the willow's hanging leaves. Like I told Eve, I don't want to talk about this. So he knows nothing. Ethan never told. No. Blaze never let any being tell him what happened to his shadow. He's not even aware of the brand on his shoulder. Amber takes a deep breath. As strong as his insistence to ignorance is, this isn't something he can turn a blind eye to. Has he not questioned once why he's been doing the things he's done this cycle? Has he come to accept this change in his personality without so much of a second thought? He should have at least be aware that he isn't the same as he used to be anymore. That this isn't his fault at all. Your shadow was marked with an order to protect me and Luke Gray, she states. Blaze freezes, the leaves draped over the back of his hand to reveal the quiet night beyond the tranquil tree. It was so that you couldn't hurt us while we were on Corridon, but I guess it's still in effect. Maybe you should ask Eth to remove it for you, just so that you're not forced to act like a being you're not. Blaze is still, hardly even twitching as her words fade into the night. I've always wanted to protect other beings, he says. I was willing to put my life on the line to save an entire island. Brands and shadows and threats aside, I wouldn't have done this cycle any differently either. But thank you for letting me know. His head turns, though he keeps his face hidden. Now are you coming or what? That's right. It's almost too easy to forget that he was supposed to have gone to Corridon with Ethan before Blaze's shadow was taken and she wound up in Ethan's care instead. They had been planning for years. She knew that going to Corridon at that time was practically a death sentence, but it never crossed her mind that he was doing it for a good reason. He knew it was likely going to be a one-way trip, yet he made his preparations anyway. She was just a burden. Heart heavy and body weary, she starts forward herself. Hearing her approach, Blaze steps through the curtain of leaves, Amber only a few steps behind. Her eyes sink to the ground, unable to raise themselves. Maybe Kimberly was right. Maybe she should just focus on her studies from now on and let the others handle this mess. Maybe she's more help to them by staying out of the way. Then she won't be hurting any being or becoming a burden. No being would need to worry about her. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees Blaze drop back to stride by her side. I'm worried about them too, you know, he tells her. Chasing after the shards isn't easy. Just have a little faith in them. I'm sure things will work out. She wrings her hands. I just wanted to help. And you did, didn't you? I don't really know. I'd say you did. Stars only know what would have happened if you hadn't offered to help. Amber can't help but let out a reluctant sigh. I guess. You did, he insists, and now it's up to them to see things through. It still doesn't shake the dark cloud hanging over her. She can't help but feel defeated, like she still did things wrong. Ethan could have done everything they did in half the time, no doubt. If it weren't for her, Blaze wouldn't have missed his class, or hurt himself, or gotten possessed. You just have to take your mind off of it for a little while, Blaze adds, giving her a light elbowing. And spend some time outside of your head. That's a little hard, she comments. Yeah, well, you're not the only one dealing with memory loss. She finally raises her head. Sure, she isn't the only being on ASTRIA struggling with missing time, Electro is too. But their issues are far from being the same. Though, does Blaze know any of that? I'd rather not agonize over what I don't know. He clarifies. Whatever happened on Cordon stays on Cordon. I'm fine with that. Wait, she says, promptly stopping in her tracks. Blaze pauses a few steps away, caught off guard by her sudden halt. How do you know I have memory loss? Blaze turns to her, retrieving something from his pocket. It's small enough to be mostly shrouded by his fingers, but she can still make out a flash of dark red and shadowed white. Something small rattles around as his hand moves. He holds up the thing to her, his fingers parting to let her see. It's a small red box with an image printed on its surface. He has one of his fingers pressed against its bottom, which is white, as if he were holding it in place. Her heart jumps into her throat, her head starting to pound once again. She can't stop her face from contorting into an expression she doesn't know. Impossibly, she recognizes the box, even though she can't put a name to it. It's wrong. It shouldn't be there in his hand, but it is. Blaze shifts his weight. Do you know what this is? Yes, she mutters. What's it called? He asks. But she shakes her head, raising a hand to her temples once more. It feels like its name is on the tip of her tongue, but the harder she tries to recall it, the more the void hammers in her skull. She can't even muster her voice to speak. It's a matchbox, he answers for her. All at once, the pressure releases. Relief leaves her lips in an airy breath. The ache still remains, though, as the question shifts. Where did you get that? She manages to inquire, her voice small and stiff with pain. He turns the box away from her and begins to tumble it in his hand, flipping it over and over with his fingers expertly. The little white tray occasionally starts to slide out, only for him to promptly push it back in with little thought. Truthfully, I don't know myself, but trying to figure it out is more pain than it's worth. He looks down at the matchbox like it's a key to some ancient mystery. You're the first being that knew what this was. Really? Amber breathes back. Blaze nods, regarding her with a new light in his eyes as he slips the matchbox back into his pocket. They sparkle with curiosity and what Amber can feel to be a soft kinship. Over what, neither of them know, but there is something special here. Something they can't quite put their fingers on. His soft expression hardens into something a little more typical of his attitude, tired with a hint of annoyance. But it's a bit late to be digging into this now. He holds out a hand, gesturing for Amber to join him once again. She nods in agreement. It's certainly a lot for her to absorb and think about right now, especially since she needs to be up early for class next cycle. But maybe they can continue this conversation later. Together in heavy silence, they make the rest of the trek back to the dorms. Act 3 next week! Yay! For those watching live, anyway. So that's the end of Act 2. So Blaze referring to Lucre as Lucre is incorrect. Unfortunately, it happened twice, because I am a dunce. So, just so you know, that is actually a spelling mistake. I'm just so used to writing out Lucre's name in full that when I switch to Blaze POV, I forget that he doesn't actually use his full name. And it's really hard to catch that. But otherwise,
Any thoughts? Any questions? Any I'm sorry that Echo's bullying you, Shub? Echo, stop bullying Shub. I also see Electro's getting some Nom flashbacks, apparently. Thank you, Shub. That's great. It's not bullying if it's spoilers. Okay. Okay, you two. Settle down now. Settle down. Um, not a whole lot for me to talk about here. Oh, originally there was a scene where the gang actually goes to the true center of the pyramid and they just kind of walk around and you get to actually like see the inside. But then I was like, no, this is a sacred place and I need to make it sacred. And I also need to add possession, apparently, because possession is just a great way for the ancient Cerberus to protect their precious little thing. So that got changed. But it's basically just one giant, tall, rectangular tube in smack dab in the middle of the entire pyramid. So like the actual center tip, like think like one of the pyramids of Giza where they still have like the little top part intact is basically like it's that big all the way down is hollow in the center. And there's only one way to get to it, and it is through that one specific chamber, and you have to go past that one asshole that will possess you. Which I think is fun. And then the next question was, well then who do I have get possessed? So that's how Blaze got involved in this whole thing. Because I don't believe Blaze was involved in the very first draft. I think he was just sort of around, like a supporting character, but he was not really, like, involved, which kind of sucked, because, of course, he's part of the main six. What it... Sir Dalton Taylor? Does he have a tail? No, I don't think so. I don't remember. It's not really stated if he does or does not have a tail. No, I'm making the executive decision. He does not have a tail. If he did have a tail, it would probably be like a detachable tail. It's it's an addition. It's an extra feature. I have a question. Who exactly was the guardian in the pyramid? As it was mentioned, he was a pyromancer, and how did Solari disappear from the map? So, history. Here's some ASTRIA history. Also, well, first of all, the spirit
originally was just like a generic spirit, but then I was looking back at like the rest of the story and I'm like, you know what? This would be an interesting foil to some other character that you haven't met yet that we will be running into momentarily. And by momentarily I mean in the next reading. So that's why the spirit is like that or has that kind of backstory. Because I thought I was being cheeky, and I am being cheeky, and I will continue to be cheeky, and you can't stop me, this is my story. So, this spirit used to be a living guy who tried to steal the shard to the font of magic from the pyramid, from the Cerberus, and then the Cerberus caught him being cheeky, and put him up for execution, and then they were like, you know, since you tried to steal from our pyramid, your eternal punishment is not just death, but serving as the guardian for the pyramid. So I believe actually no, they didn't execute him. They just bound him eternally to that chamber, and then when he died, his spirit just remains. So then he possesses whatever living body comes along, and it's like, go, shoot, you're not supposed to be here. I don't quite remember what I decided upon, so it's either he got executed and his spirit was bound there, or he was just bound there and then died, but his spirit was still bound there. But he's stuck there, he can't leave. And he's been, like, he got sealed inside of a pyramid, and it's been sitting there for stars only know how long, with no one to talk to and nothing to do, and I bet, like, once, like Ryan and Aisha showed up after all those years, it was very happy to just talk to someone. Well, okay, I don't think it would be like super chatty, but it's like, oh, I have to do my job now? God, what was my job again? Oh, right. What did I have to do? And how did Solari disappear from the map? Oh, yeah, by the way, the spirit doesn't really have a name. It's just meant to be pyromancer thief from a time before type thing. But if I am forced to give him a name, I will not tell you. It makes a bunch of arbitrary trials for them to go just to stall for time and talk more. I will pull your arms and legs just so that I can talk to someone again. Can I set up a tea party with him? Well, you could try. It would be hard. Either you would have to make someone else get possessed, or he would have to possess you. Why won't you tell me? Because I don't want to verbally issue things into canon at this moment, I guess you could say. I could be stupid and just call him Jeff. My name's Jeff. But that's not serious. I have shubified Amber. Yay! Yay! Oh my god, she's so cute! Adorable! Who would ever want to hurt her? Anyway, as for Solari, the collapse... Echo. Echo. No. No. But, it's Amber.
Why? I hate you. I hate you so much. Echo execution. You're gonna be stuck at the pyramid now. Hello, new guardian of the pyramid. Oh no, I remember what the spirit used to be. The spirit used to be one of Lucre's ancestors actually. So it was like it used to be a thing where like the previous king of the Cerberus would spend some time guarding the pyramid. So like if Lucre died, he would have wound up there for a little bit of time before before the next in line dies, and then he would be able to go off into Snake Afterlife, whatever Snake Afterlife looks like. Probably the White Beyond still. I have not really thought of that, admittedly. But then I changed it to a thief because I think the like a former thief was just better. And in this being his eternal punishment forever. Because I didn't want to stick my little boy's soul into a pyramid, a dusty old pyramid, with nothing to do for who knows how long before he's able to just move on. I think that would have been sad. Anyway, I keep getting away from Solari. Solari. Okay, so the city of Solari used to be a port town, which actually in the Great War, I believe, which is on my Substack linked in the description down below, is where the General of Creation grew up and is from. So the collapse isn't really known because everyone involved in it died because it was totally out of left field and no one expected it to happen. And even I haven't like concretely decided on what exactly happened, but I do think it was something to do with just the weight of the city in this one place. Because if you think about it, when like when the ocean disappeared, you have a lot of these like how to describe different like rock strengths. My brain. So the land is like stronger or weaker in certain parts. So if you like it's like if you try and built a house on sand, essentially, huh? It's not very stable, and then if you don't displace the weight properly enough, it's going to shift, and then like one part of your house is going to fall apart because that side is just weaker because the weight distribution isn't correct or whatever. So you have weak points in the islands which are now no longer being supported by like this one connecting layer of bedrock because Astria's islands actually float, which you'll see when we get to like the ending, when they do things. You'll be able to see that, but like the bedrock fractured on the lizard side of Astria, so the islands are basically being kept afloat by all of the magic that's coming up from the center of the world. So it's like if there's too little weight, the magic will just push it up into the stratosphere until it eventually dissipates. Or if there's too much weight, then the island will be able to fight back against the magic updraft and sink. So it's one of those when the bedrock disappeared and everything was now being supported by this updraft of magic. Well, since Solari was a port city and a lot of like the first things to have like crumbled or be destroyed or disappeared into the void were um like bay beaches, like the edges of the islands that were already being eroded by the water and the sand and all of that. um the I would imagine that the land around Solari was just naturally a little bit weaker and not meant to support an entire city on top of it once the bedrock wore away. So there could have been like many of different reasons, but basically it's the city was left to be supported on its own by the magic, but it also had an entire city built upon it, and it used to be a port city. And a lot of the port cities got destroyed and had to be like moved back and rebuilt over time. Another good example is what's Ica from Corridon. That used to be the capital city of Corridon, and it was also a port city. And I know I haven't gotten to the point in the Great War where everything collapsed, but when the border barrier appears and the water disappears, a lot of Ica gets dragged down with it because it is built upon weaker rock that just cannot support the weight of boats slamming into it and all of that sand and sediment and the piers and some of the like the heavy like warehouses, stuff like that. But why the pyramid is still there, well, that's a mystery that they're still trying to figure out. But the rest of the city didn't fare so well. So that's like my thoughts on that. Like you can basically just boil it down to a difference in weight of things on land to magic ratio being out of balance to the point where it all just kind of essentially. But no one knows the specifics. And I don't know if they'll ever figure out the specifics unless someone uncovers time magic and goes back in time. The timey-wimey travel. But they still have the pyramid. And the pyramid is great, and we love it. I know you really only got to see like the main hallway and then like a few chambers, but it is huge. It is massive. I mean, naturally. And there's a lot more to it. But I don't think we'll ever go back like in these books. The next book, oh boy. The third book. Oh, you'll just have to wait and see on that. Oh, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna have so many implications. I am not forgiving you for chapter 12. I was screaming. I tried to make it as fun as possible, okay? Because I also had a lot of fun writing that, too. Not Ryan. Though Ryan does also need his comeuppance. Jay needed his comeuppance as well. Because in the again, in the old draft, I think Jay was there, but he was only there for the initial scene of, hey, do you probably know where my mom is?
I added that second scene later on because in my mind, knowing Electro, there is absolutely no way he would let Jay get off scot-free about any of this either. So like I just figured, hey, I think Jay may or may not have been colluding with Ryan, and Ryan's already an ass, and Kelsey has kind of become an ass, which like all the way back in like what, the first or second reading, I think I pronounced it Ryan Assblade on accident, which I didn't mean to do. But also, you'll see next reading how bad he truly is. I mean, think Jay. A little bit worse than Jay. Ryan and Kelsey, did I cover this? Stop me if you've heard this before, but Ryan and Kelsey also used to be like actually like supporting side characters. They were meant to be a lot more involved in the story than they are in the published version, because when I was originally writing it with the two of them with everyone else, it was so overcrowded, especially with trying to deal with the original main six. So it pushed Blaze out so far that I was not happy with I was just not happy with him not being there, or like being some kind of help to the rest of the gang. And also, like, in hindsight, when I was thinking about it and reading it back, the first draft, I was like, well, if you really think about it, Brian and Kelsey are not the greatest people, and they are forgiven way too fast by everyone after some of the stuff that they did. Like, Kelsey didn't care about Kim. She went off to the mountains and no one ever saw her again. And Ryan, I mean, just look at Ryan. No, just look at him. He did all of that. It has children that he doesn't even care about. Like in the first draft, has children he doesn't even care about. He basically did all of that just to get access to the shard and stiffed Aisha with pregnancy, basically. So, and then when they went to go find Ryan, it's like, oh yeah, it's fine. No, it's not fine. Everything is not fine. Why? Why did I... I think at that time, I wanted good parents, but then how I originally wrote them, they were already bad parents, and I was trying to force forgiveness into it when at the end of the day they abandoned their families and went off to do their own thing for 18 years, and then Electro comes back, and the only reason that they care about anything is because Electro is back and interfering with their new lives, right? So then I changed it to where they are not part of the cast. Kelsey's a little bit sad, but it's also like, come on, man. Come on, man. But Ryan's just a dick. Ryan has always been just a dick, but now he's like, again, I cannot wait for the next reading, because you will see. You will understand. It will be the longest reading, probably. Again, it will be 89 pages. But we're gonna find Ryan. It's going to be great. Because Electro gets his wish. And that is enough hype about the next reading that I'm going to do. But also taking the two of them out from doing key things in the story opened up a little bit more room for Blaze to step in and be a little bit more of a presence. Because it's like, why would I introduce this great ensemble in the first book and then use 5 out of the 6 of the ensemble in the second book, right? Why would I do that? Because I'm stupid, that's why. So I decided to cure myself of some stupidity. Not all of it. As evidenced by the amount of stuff left in all of my writing so far that isn't supposed to be there. Oops. Ah. You know, I feel like the people are going to ask me at some point, like, why are your books riddled with spelling mistakes, even though you get them, like, looked over by editors and whatnot, and other people in my life, like, well, first of all, they didn't catch it. Second of all, I'm not really paying them to do it. They're doing it in their free time, which is great, and I love them. I am very happy to have been receiving the amount of help that I have been. And I know that I'm a perfectionist as well. And I'm fine with a few. I strive for perfection, but at that point in the editing process, I don't want to be looking at the manuscript any more than I have to, because at that point it's not the little details that will irk me. It's the major story beats that I don't want to fiddle with too much, or else I'm going to break something, like fundamentally break something. I can misspell someone's name for like someone's POV and be fine with it, but I cannot fundamentally alter conversations and still be fine with it, because then that has a knock-on effect, right? And I just don't want to break anything, basically. I thought Shadowbound was pretty error-free. Oh yes, that one, I mean, this Bloodbound too. There's little mistakes here and there. Like I said, Shadowbound, the most popular one is baloney instead of balcony. And I keep kicking myself for that. Like there are a few mistakes in both, but I feel like also in the grand scheme of things, it's still a good story, and I think most of the mistakes can be overlooked. And I would be going insane if I were trying to spot every little detail that was wrong. There was a sentence that didn't have a period. Oh yeah, that too. That too. I don't even remember that. See? Perfect. Great. Now this is just like me noticing stuff doing these readings. Cuz shockingly enough, I do not go back and do like a full read through, and I think I should. I really should, because I catch a lot of stuff reading aloud. But again, like at that point in the editing process, I don't want to be doing anything else with the manuscript. I just want my edits done and over with, and then I just close the thing down. And then I never look at it again. So there's a couple of mistakes that get through. But I'm also happy that the mistakes are not so egregious to the point where they actually take away from the story, I guess you could say. Or at least I don't think they are. And hey, if all of you still enjoy it despite the little errors and stuff left in, then that's great, because I've done my job at making a story so compelling that I am the only one that is obsessing about this, and no one else cares except for the neats that actually comb through line by line and go, why? It's still impressive to write hundreds of pages with so few mistakes. My biggest fear, especially with Shadowbound, my biggest fear was that I was going to have a lot more mistakes left in. And I think overall with Shadowbound, there were like 7 or 8 errors. I could be lowballing, but I want to say there was about 7 to 8 like actual errors with it. But the rest of it was fine. In Bloodbound, I think I'm at, like, there's only 10 or 11? But this is also a longer book, so I think the ratio of mistake to word is still fine. A lot of it is the wording, though. Like, I do struggle to read my own writing sometimes. But then again, I feel like everyone struggles with that. But also, I just use a lot of weird phrasing because I don't know. I want to sound fancy? Question mark? I don't even know myself. It's just the stuff that my brain thinks of. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds cool and interesting. And then I actually read it aloud. It's like, and then the snake backflip in the pool. And yay. Like, what sentence is that? Anyway, that's my little spelling mistake rant done and over with, because yes. And I know, like, after all that, me saying that I actually don't care might sound a little bit weird, but if the story is so compelling that you overlook a lot of the little errors left in and you can still take away something from it, even if you do notice the 1 or 2 times I happen to slip up and not catch it, then that's still a good story. And I have still succeeded. And also, this is for all of you to also understand that not every book is perfect, because my grandma used to find mistakes in like traditionally published with like reputable publishing houses books, and she would write those edits down and send them into the publishing houses and be like, hey, I found 1 or 2. I want to say there's a spelling mistake or 2 in one of Rick Riordan's books as well that I remember quite prominently because of how it broke the flow of the sentence. Yeah, the AA. So, like, look, it's not just me. It is also the like, everyone else. So if you're also looking to publish a book, be it through a house or on your own, and you either, like, get a friend to do it for free or you hire an editor, whatever the case may be, there's always going to be a few things that slip through the cracks at the end of the day, and you have to be comfortable with your story not being totally perfect on a technical level, so long as it still conveys the point that you were trying to make in an entertaining way. Now, if your entire book is just riddled with technical faults, then I think that would defeat the purpose. But the point being, it's okay to have a few things here and there that that may be weird, but if it doesn't take away from the overall story, if it doesn't break that immersion, then take a deep breath, because you have written a story that people are going to read and potentially like. And you've done a pretty damn good job at it. I look at the chat. Anyway, sorry. Moving on. Those spirits are looking great, Echo. Yeah, I can't wait for next week either. Not just because it's going to be the end of the book, but also there's like really fun scenes coming up, like in Act 2, definitely the Electro and Jay thing. Most fun I had writing this entire part. Um and then Act 3 is just, it's full of moments that I had a lot of fun with. Had a lot of fun playing around with, at the expense of like Asna and Ethan and Electro and all that. Electro 1,000 yard stare. The Nom flashbacks are real. Snake did a backflip, snapped the bad guy's neck, and saved the day. Hooray! Thank you, Luke. You are our savior. Also, did you know that Echo hasn't read this far into the books, so she doesn't even know what's going on either? Nope, I've said it now and it is on the internet forever. Yeah, that is true. You are cursed with the knowledge of the future. I forgive you. It's okay. But hey, that just makes what's gonna happen next week all the more fun. Because she's gonna be drawing scenes that I have to send her excerpts about, and then I'm actually gonna like read up to them. It's gonna be like, oh, okay, so that's how that happens. That's gonna be great. I remember Echo was reading and was ahead of me, and then I finished the book in the next week. Well, Shub, you're cool and amazing. That's why. Look, if you have a good read in your hands, then you're gonna finish it faster than other people who are not as rabid as you. That's okay. This is your free time to read, though. This is your free time for me to read to you about Bloodbound. Bloodbound was so amazing. Rabid! Yes, rabid. Like rabid in a good way.
Hmm. Anything else that I could answer, or any theories that people could throw at me about all that we've read up until this point? Amp is being colored! Yay! She deserves some color in her life. Favorite scene so far? Something, 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 something. The flower? Echo likes the flower scene. I do too. I also like the flower scene. The legs of Sir Taylor look Baisling. Baisling. Are there cats and dogs in Astria? Are there alternatives? Like in terms of pets? Because the Shasks are supposed to be wolves. And the Yafir are wolverines. But oh. Hello. But there's not really a lot of Dalton. Yeah, there's not really a lot of like extra like animals that could be considered like pets to be kept, quote unquote. I must know the pet options. Your pet options probably range from the undead to whatever mechanical construct you can create yourself. It's like I said, there's two key there's two key livestock, which is basically chicken and cow. And then you have the wizards, Shasks, Yafir, Fenny, and Cerberus of the islands. And there's about enough food to feed the current population that there is, and there's enough room for the current population that there is across all of the islands. And that's about it. There's no bugs. The bugs are gone. There's no weather. The weather's artificial. There's no sun. Mirage is weird. There's, like, kind of a day and night cycle, but also not really. Because it's just the gods. Maybe. Well, that's what they think. They think it's the gods going around. I don't know that they don't have fish. They have a lot of plants. I think in absence of plants, there would be a lot of gardeners. Plants would be the pets. And then yeah, you can make some kind of magical construct and or buy a magical construct and or become best friends with the dead. That's about it. So unfortunately there's not very many pet options. Again, just third book. I really need to write the third book. The third book's gonna be so much fun. The gods controlling the sun and moon are just running around playing tag. Yeah. Oh yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Fenny do actually like have a kava or oh, what did I call the chicken? It was like pull me wakefulness. Something along those lines. Like ferrets. Like, I would be surprised if some of them have, like, taken some of the actual cattle and, like, sanctioned it as pets, and so they just don't butcher them and they take care of them. Yeah, they have cattle and stuff. I'll say there used to be actual wolves, but then that got changed in Shadowbound. So now there's no wolves anymore. So yeah, they do have domesticated cattle. And yeah, I guess like if you farm them, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to treat one or two of them like a pet. I'm going to draw you so much art, I will fuel you with writing worms this way. Thank you. I need something to get my imagination going. It has not been going lately. Which Hello. Hi. I love you. You are amazing. You're amazing to me. You do my art. No, don't be mad. But it's like, it's one thing if it's you, and it's another thing if it's Shub. I'm sorry. Look, you and Shub can do a fusion dance and become more powerful. I'll draw a guy. I can't say. You can't say what guy you're drawing? No. But I want to know. I've had a lot of other things going on at the moment, and I think I'm having one of those life is getting in the way moments, and I don't know how to get it out of my way, and really the hardest part is just sitting down and writing again. Like, I have an outline. I did actually outline the third book, like, properly. I have a checklist of all the scenes that I want and what is going to happen in each of them and how it leads into the next. But I just haven't actually opened the document in a while. Which I know I can write a lot if I just give myself the space to write a lot, because I can write just under 10,000 words in a day if I tried hard and I was given a full day. I can do that. There's just a lot of other things that I want to do too. See, this is the problem with, like, writing becoming my pseudo job now, is because now writing is work. Elvin says, I love you. Echo Bingy Shadowbound art collab. Yeah. Do that. I agree. Yeah, that was last year, but you could do it again. That's the amazing part. It is not exclusive to one time. You gonna finish your shading or what? I do keep saying things, and it's great. This is my call-out post on twitter.com. Well, anyway. You think you're done? Oh! Nice! Pretty! Well, this will be going up on the Discord after the live reading. Discord link in the description down below. Come join the community! We love talking about Shadowbound. Is it missing anything? No, I think it looks fine.
Oh, maybe make the tunnel dark. That's about it. Echo's great. Go follow Echo on her socials. Link in the description as well. And you can also see all of Shub's Shadowbound art in the server too. It is great and we love it. Well, as I was finishing touches on this, I will take final questions, final theories, final anything, because then I'm gonna go as well. And faceplant. And the next reading will be next week on the 27th. The 27th and the 28th, we're going to be finishing Bloodbound, everyone. Yay! All these pictures will be added to my ASTRIA backgrounds. Yes! Let's go. I need to update all of my pictures. I need to change my lock screen. Don't think I have any more questions. Okay. I am excited for next week because it is like my most favorited part of Bloodbound ever. That did not make sense. I swear I'm a good writer. I mean, I published 2 books. I think I should be. I can fail at speaking, but succeed at writing. And you do not get to judge me. Look at all them ghosties. Well, thank you all for being here. It has been a blast. And, I will see you all for the next reading then. I hope you have an amazing time zone. Goodbye. Very pretty is pretty. Thank you, Echo.